I'm going to spend 100 days becoming a master dinosaur tamer in ARK Survival Ascended. On the center there are 95 total creatures and I will be taming them all solo. To spice up this challenge, I've made some rules. Number 1, I have to tame creatures in the order their saddles unlock. This is going to be hard because saddles like, let's say, the pterodon unlock after many creatures. Number 2, tames that don't require a saddle can be tamed at any time. And finally, number 3, at the end of the 100 days, I have to fight the bosses with my best 20 creatures and no duplicates are allowed. Will I be able to complete these challenges? Stick around until day 100 to find out. I spawned on Tropical Island South on day 1 to start my adventure. This spawn location is the easiest on the center map and almost all the early game dinos I would need to tame spawn nearby. This is my first time playing ARK Survival Ascended, and after spawning in, I had to take a second to look at the absolutely amazing scenery. Dang, look at that. The game looks so good. After looking at my surroundings, I noticed a white drop down the beach from me that caught my eye. It could have some much needed early game structures or tools to help me out. When I got to the drop, I noticed I had to be level 3 to access it, so I started picking bushes and punching trees to level up. After getting to level 3, I opened the drop hoping for something good. I was completely let down when there was basically nothing of value. Before I could tame anything, I needed to focus on my gear, so I learned a bunch of basic engrams. I then crafted a stone pickaxe and basic cloth armor to protect myself. After crafting the pickaxe, I was able to gather enough resources to be able to craft a hatchet and spear. After making all my tools, I noticed a Listro on the beach. Because the Listro has no saddle, I could tame him at any time. I jumped at this opportunity because Listros give an XP buff that would help me to learn better engrams much faster than normal. I put Medjo berries in my hotbar and he quickly tamed, which meant I had gotten my first tame of the challenge. Let's name him Happy Feet. Happy Feet, our Listro, and our first tame. I decided to name him Happy Feet and I immediately put his ability to work by petting him and gaining the XP buff. With the XP buff, I killed some Dinos and harvested their bodies to get a bunch of hide. I then ran down the beach and finished crafting a full set of cloth armor, a water skin, and more spears. I started my starter base by crafting some thatch foundations and a mortar and pestle. I wanted to craft a bed for my base so I could respawn at any time, so I went looking for more hide. I ran up the hill and saw something small running in the bushes. It ended up being a baby Dino from the 2 Dinos I had killed earlier. I decided to claim the Dino and give it a fitting name. Bruce. We'll call him Bruce. I killed both of his parents. He's gonna become Batman. He's gonna save Gotham. I then went on an adventure to gather hide for a bed and craft hide armor. I got overconfident and got into an intense battle. I fought several compies and a Dino. Over the course of the long battle, I ran out of stamina from hitting the Dinos and having to dodge the Dino's spit. At the last second the Dino was about to die, I made a mistake and got hit by its venom. I killed it, but I didn't have enough health to survive until the venom wore off. As you can guess, I died and I was extremely humbled dying on the very first day. I started day 2 by respawning and I lucked out spawning very close to my body. I was able to get back all my stuff, so dying was a very minor setback. I got into a quick fight with some more Dinos and got plenty of hide. Uh-oh. Are we under attack here? Here, Bruce, chill out. Oh. Good job, Bruce. Bruce is all grown up and protecting Happy Feet. Let's go. Attaboy. Let's get you some food. When I got back to my starter base, Bruce was all grown up and was helping to protect Happy Feet. Although Bruce was fully grown and counted towards the taming requirement, I made it my goal for the rest of 100 days to try avoiding the strategy of claiming babies as tames. This is because it takes away from the challenge, and if I claim babies as all of my tames, it would make the challenge way too easy. I made a bed and was preparing to try and make trank arrows when disaster struck. There was a level 145 terror bird right next to my base fighting a turtle, but he would not be occupied for long. I crafted some bolas, and after getting harassed by an Ichthyornis, I bullied the terror bird. I thought I would be able to do enough damage to kill him while he was bullied, but I didn't even get close. He broke free from the bulla and I decided to use my life to lead him away from the base. This plan worked out perfectly and I was able to get him far away from the base as well as retrieve my items. We need to go find a Phiomia as first order of business so we can tame a Parasaur close to base. And now we have Trank Arrow, so we could do it for sure. I then started to prepare for my first saddle tame, the Phiomia. I crafted a bow, arrows, and narcotics. I went down the beach and got into another fight with Dinos. As soon as my fight finished, I noticed a Phiomia stuck on a log. We lucked out, finally found a Phiomia right here on the beach. Let's see what level he is. Okay, he's level 20. He's level 20. He was only level 20 and would be an easy tame. I bullied him, then tranked him down. He tamed and I decided to name him Pumbaa. I now had my second tame of the 100 days and could move on to other saddle tames. And then we can tame a Parasaur whenever we want to now. So that is a big progress step right there. As I got back to base, day 3 began and immediately more challenges were thrown my way. The Terrorbird Menace attacked yet again and in no time he killed both my tames that were at the base. No! The Terrorbird's attacking us! No! Uh-oh, this is not good. Get out of here. Let's get out of here. I'm really hurt. I can barely run away. Come on, Pumbaa. Let's go. Let's get out of here. I barely managed to bowl the terror bird and whistle passive on Pumbaa without dying. Miraculously, we were able to limp away and the terror bird did not follow us. I crafted a campfire to cook meat so I could heal, and I decided to tame a parasaur that could maybe help me kill the terror bird. I bowled the parasaur and shot him with tranks until he went down. At the last second before he went down, a Dilo snuck up on me and did a ton of damage to the parasaur, lowering its taming effectiveness a lot. To save the parasaur from dying, I knocked out the Dilo and decided to tame it as well. The Dilo tamed up and would be a good replacement for Bruce. I started picking some bushes for my parasaur tame when I noticed 2 baby triceratops. Even though I wanted to, I couldn't claim them because the trike saddle was several tames ahead of me. I can't actually imprint on this guy yet though. We have to get Carbonimus and Morellatops before we can even come close to the trike and Apache. I put some berries in the parasaur's inventory, and because he was starved out, he tamed instantly. I named him Perry, a super creative name for a parasaur, and continued to focus on my goals. My priority was to reclaim my starter base and try to kill the terror bird that caused me so many issues. To be able to do this, I crafted some bolas and a parasaur saddle. I also decided to craft a bunch of stone arrows and 2 pieces of hide armor to give me the best chance to succeed. I waited until morning, then I charged down the beach ready for an intense battle. When I got back to base, the terror bird was nowhere to be found and my base was safe. There was a stegosaurus nearby my base, so I think that's what killed the terror bird. Either way, I was just grateful to have my base back, and now I could refocus on my taming goals. I started grinding for more narcotics so I could tame a Carbonimus and progress further. Perry was a huge improvement in getting narco berries compared to picking them by hand. It would make crafting large amounts of trank arrows much easier, and he would help save me time. Day 4 began as I started crafting a bunch of narcotics for future tames. I could not progress any further until they were done crafting, so I decided to learn a bunch of engrams and specifically wood structures to help improve my base. I decided to craft a storage box for my extra resources, and so my character would not be so weighed down when gathering more materials. After putting away resources I didn't need, I harvested a bunch of wood to craft wood foundations. This not only gave me a ton of experience, but made my structures much more sturdy. By the time I finished replacing my thatch foundations, half of my narcotics were crafted, and I made them into trank arrows. I had about 30 trank arrows, which would be plenty for any Carbonimus I would encounter. I was almost ready to set out on a taming adventure, but I wanted to get some meat cooking while I was gone. So I made a campfire, then set out on Perry. After running down the beach, I spotted my first turtle and got ready to tame him. I started by clearing out the area and killing a Dilo with Perry. Killing the Dilo gave me just enough hide to finish my full set of hide armor, making my character a lot more tanky. The turtle was extremely high level, and I wasn't sure I had enough trank arrows to knock him out like I thought I would, so I scouted for a safer option. I found a level 20 right next to him, and I decided to tame him. My parasaur was the perfect tame for helping me knock out the turtle. This was because I could shoot off the back of him, which meant my player didn't have any chance of taking damage, and he was much faster than the turtle. I started tranking the turtle, and what should have been an easy tame almost went horribly. Can't have that crazy a torpor, so he's gonna go down soon. Of course, this Ichthyornis is attacking me right now while I'm doing this. I think the turtle went down. Perfect. Oh, we're in some trouble here. Come on, don't die, Perry. Don't die on me, Perry. An Ichthyornis started attacking me and stealing all of my stuff. Then literally an entire pack of Dilos ambushed me from behind. They spit on me and I could barely see anything as I was trying to take them down with Perry. They were pretty high level and Perry was barely able to take them down with less than a quarter of his health left. After surviving that pucker factor of a fight, I decided to bully the annoying Ichthyornis and trank him out. I tried to tame him with normal raw meat, but I would need to get fish meat. In the meantime, I put Medjo berries in the turtle's inventory and tamed him up. I named him Bowser and moved him by Perry to guard the Ichthyornis. I jumped into the water to find fish meat, only to be face to face with 3 megalodons. That was guaranteed death, so I ran farther down the beach where I was able to kill a fish for fish meat. I also noticed several dolphins, which is a tame I would need to get next. Day 4 came to a close as I tamed up the bird, and this brought my tame total to 6 dinos. I made it back to base on day 5 and I noticed a dodo on the beach. There was no reason to wait, so I tamed him and took another tame off the list. I was going to go tame an Ichthyosaurus, but I saw that Morellatops saddle was first on the engram list. Apparently, actually, Morellatops actually do not spawn on the center. So we don't have to worry about this Morellatops saddle anymore because we can't get one. Now that I knew Merlotops didn't spawn, I could tame a dolphin after all. So I went to go scope the ocean nearby. I poked my head into the water and again saw several megalodons very close by. With the amount of sharks in the water, even if I was able to tame a dolphin, he would probably die. So I decided to grind the materials for a saddle so I could better control a dolphin and bring him to safety after it was tamed. The ichthys saddle took 8 raw metal to craft, and with my horrible pickaxe, this literally took forever. I had to break rock after rock, and the most metal I could get from a rock was about 2. After clearing every rock in a mile radius, I finally had enough metal to craft the saddle. I crafted the saddle, then got a bunch of meat spoiling in my inventory so it would be ready to craft into narcotics after the tame. I went into the water to find a dolphin, and lucky for me, a lot of the megalodons had swam out of the area. I was able to very cautiously kill a fish nearby so I would have food to pass his feed. Now that I had plenty of fish meat, I ran further down the beach and found an ichthys swimming in a safe spot close to shore. He was a low level and I fed him once, taming him over halfway. After feeding him, he decided to swim out to sea and a megalodon aggroed on me. I had to back out of the water as fast as I could and was literally millimeters from dying to the shark. Oh, this is not nice. Okay. Oof. I eventually saw an opportunity to jump down into the water and managed to get the second feed off to tame the dolphin. I quickly put the saddle on him and bolted to shallow water where the sharks couldn't follow me. Okay, we got our guy. We're out of here. Ooh. Okay, all right, we're good. We're chilling. I briefly got stuck on a shark and almost didn't make it, but I got the tame back to base safely. As day 6 began, I was hyper focused on my goal of taming a Pachy. This is because a trike was the next tame on the saddle list after a Pachy. Once I could get a trike tamed, it would skyrocket my progress and make the game much easier. Trikes have much more health and can hold their own in a fight better than anything I currently had. Also, they have a high weight stat which would help with harvesting narcotics and other resources in general. I ran through the forest finding absolutely nothing besides an oviraptor, and I kept running until I came out into a clearing. I noticed several raptors and a terror bird running around, so I decided it was way too dangerous. I ran back towards the forest and I would have to find a Pachy there. As I ran into the forest, I got extremely lucky when I spotted a Pachy. Oh, perfect, the Pachy right there. Okay. Alright. Let's get this guy bullet and tamed up, and then we can move on to and get a trike. It was in a safe spot and wasn't too high level, so it was the ideal tame. I bullet him and started pumping him with trank arrows. I was astonished when I put a ton of trank arrows into him and he didn't knock out. The bullet's timer ran out and I was forced to tank hits from the Pachy with parry. He eventually got high on torpor and started running away. There we go, perfect, then he's down. Okay. A little bit more scuff than I was hoping for there. We got him knocked out. I got him knocked out and started to tame him. After he tamed, I named him Wreck-It Ralph and brought him back to base. While on the way back to base, I spotted a level 90 trike and decided that was my target. Now that the Pachy tame was out of the way, it was time to get a trike as soon as possible. I grabbed the narcotics out of the pestle and started crafting trank arrows. I had over 30, so I was hoping that was enough to down a level 90 trike. I then focused on grinding for the saddle. I bulleted a parasaur and killed it for easy hide. I then found a turtle and had a long battle with it until it finally went down. After harvesting the turtle, I had plenty of hide for the trike saddle, so I gathered some fiber and crafted it to end day 6. On day 7, I ran up into the forest and began the taming process. We could build a trap for him, but I think we're just going to try to take him down the good old-fashioned way. I got onto a rock even though I knew the trike could probably still hit me. My suspicions were confirmed when he launched me off the rock and did a ton of damage to me. He started running and I began chasing him, shooting him with a ton of trank arrows. Everything started to go downhill when there was another trike in the forest that started charging after me as well as the original trike. I continued knocking him out, shooting trank arrows whenever I could. I used a small cliff several times to lead the trikes off of, then I would jump back up and shoot an arrow. This tactic gave me just enough time to fire trank arrows and not get hit by their attacks. By some miracle, they didn't hit me much at all and the trike was getting closer to knocking out. The trike ran into the forest a second time and I chased after him while shooting him as much as I could. I forgot there was a second trike chasing me and I got sandwiched in between the two trikes and almost didn't make it out alive. Not only that, but somehow there was also a third trike that aggroed on me. There's 3 now. Are you kidding me? This is no bueno. This is no good. I think I'm gonna need more tranks for this guy as well. I kept dodging the trikes and shooting the one I wanted when I realized I was going to need more arrows. I somehow got the chance to quickly craft some more arrows and started shooting the trike again. The trike got glitched out in his charging animation and wasn't able to move at all. This was my saving grace and I was able to easily finish knocking him out. The moment I saw him knock out, I ran far away from my base with the goal of de-aggroing the trikes. Okay, he's down. Perfect, he's down. Okay, let's just lead him away. I got pretty far away and I noticed a Pegomastax in the bushes. I thought I was clear from the trike, so I decided to tame him. The moment I tamed him, one of the trikes caught me off guard and almost killed me. Luckily, the trike stopped attacking me after one hit and I was able to go back to base with my new tame. I got back to the trike and put Medjo berries in the trike's inventory. We got our trike. Let's go. We just gotta name him Spike. Spike the trike. After the trike tamed, I named him Spike and put him to work right away. I gathered up a ton of narco berries in a short amount of time and crafted them into over 80 narcotics. This would set me up for a while and I would be able to tame a lot more creatures with them. On day 8, my only focus was improving my base and farming metal tools. I first started by harvesting a bunch of wood and crafted up 2 more wood foundations. This gave me a lot more room in my base and would give me space to place down a refining forge and a smithy. Now that I had space in my base to work with, I went to go craft a forge. I bullet a Phiomia and killed him, which gave me plenty of hide for the forge. I then started harvesting as much stone as I could and gained a ton of levels while doing it. I mostly focused my levels into weight so crafting would be much easier. After getting enough stone for the forge, I needed to focus on metal. I needed 5 metal ingots to craft a smithy, which costed 10 raw metal in the forge. Not only that, but I also wanted 1 extra metal ingot to craft a metal pickaxe. A metal pickaxe had a much higher percentage of getting raw metal from rocks than a stone one. This higher percentage would make it well worth it to craft. So I spent a long time hitting river rocks close to the ocean, which had more metal than inland rocks. While out getting metal, I spotted another Listro and decided having the XP buff again would be helpful. I tamed it up and decided to name it Happy Feet's cousin to honor my initial Listro that died to the terror bird. After taming the Listro, I had enough metal to build what I needed, so I went home. I placed my new forge and started smelting down the raw metal. I decided to start enclosing my base to make it more secure. I have played ARK Survival Evolved but never ARK Ascended, so I sat like a noob for a couple minutes trying to figure out why there was no door frame engram. Oh, it's R. There we go. I eventually figured it out and finished day 8 by placing a door on my base. On day 9, base improvements continued and I wanted to craft a large storage box so I would have much more space for extra resources. I harvested the materials and got the storage box crafted. I was about to place it when I realized that I didn't want my permanent base to be on the island. So I killed another Phiomia for hide and harvested a bunch of wood for a raft. A raft would allow me to have a mobile base and a way to transport my tames very easily. I pet my Listro for the XP buff and crafted my raft while riding Spike. This made it so Spike and my character got a couple extra levels into weight. After the raft was placed into the water, I could start the grueling process of transporting all my stuff to the raft. I wanted to go for a design that gave me as much space as possible. So I placed a foundation on the very corner of the raft so I could place 3 foundations across it. I grinded a bunch more materials using Spike's high weight to help me carry everything. I crafted enough foundations to cover the entire raft, then focused on building walls. I also made sure to build a new bed so I could respawn on my boat. I went out to harvest more wood for walls and ramps to get into my boat when I lost another tame. No. Stupid Dilo. No. Another tragedy. Get him, boys. Somehow a Dilo had snuck over to my base and killed Happy Feet yet again. My dinos were not on neutral, so I didn't notice until it was too late. I can't believe we lost another Happy Feet. We just do not have a good track record with the Listros. On day 10, it was time to put the finishing touches on my raft and completely move all my crafting stations into my new home. I finished crafting all the walls I would need and put ramps leading up to each of my doors. I then focused on building a roof over my head and built a ton of sloped roofs. After I got a bunch of them placed, I realized that I would have no place to store all of my dinos. I decided to tear down all the sloped roofs and craft flat ceilings. I reused some of the roofs to build ramps that went all the way up to the ceiling of my boat that would allow me to put my dinos on the top of my raft. This would make it easy to transport all of my tames whenever I wanted. I ran into the forest for the final time to finish building the ceilings I needed to complete my raft base. Suddenly, I was attacked by a pack of Dilos, so I hopped on Spike and tried fighting back. ARK is known for being a buggy game, and this is one of the times where a glitch cost me a lot of progress. For some reason, I couldn't attack on my trike no matter what. I was left clicking and right clicking, but nothing was happening. I even hopped off the tame and whistled neutral, but nothing happened. So I was forced to fight with my spear. All of my tames ran into battle to try to defend me, but the Dilos were a very high level. My tames dropped like flies. I lost my Dodo, Phiomia, and Pegomastax. Eventually, I got on parry and managed to kill the Dilo, but the attack was a huge setback that could have been avoided if Spike was just able to attack. I'm angry. I'm so mad. A stupid glitch like that and I lose like half of my tames. After the fight was over, I finished crafting all the ceilings I needed and put the finishing touches on my base. I crafted a smithy and placed down all of my crafting stations, which meant that my base was finished and I was ready to move away from the starter island. I moved all my teams to the roof of my raft and was ready to explore more of the center map. On day 11, I came up with a plan to progress. So we got up to the trike within
the natural progression of the saddles. And the next one on our list, I believe, is the raptor. So the plan is I'm going to try to get some metal smelting, and I'm going to get better tools like metal pick, metal hatchet, and a pike, and hopefully get a crossbow too, so it's just easier to knock stuff out. And then we're just going to go out on our mobile base and try to start knocking tames off the list here. I crafted a metal pick and sailed across the ocean. I had my dolphin follow the boat as I sailed, but I didn't know if he could survive the journey. My worst fear immediately came true when he got stuck on a rock and he got eaten alive by sharks. I wasn't too upset because I was honestly expecting him to die. I went back to the island and got his saddle and continued on my journey. I sailed across the water with no issues, and there were some ruins on the beach that caught my eye. I ran inside the ruins to explore, hoping to find a metal rock to harvest, but there was nothing. But when I was getting ready to leave, I heard small footsteps right next to me and saw another listro. Another listro. Do you want to do it? I think we got to. I think we got to. This time it'll be different, I swear. You're gonna survive. Maybe. After taming my third and hopefully final listro, I went down to the beach and hit a bunch of river rocks to harvest metal. If I got enough metal to craft a full set of tools, including a crossbow, it would make taming significantly easier. With a crossbow, I would need half the amount of tranks compared to using a bow, which would save me time and resources. I started smelting down the metal, and while I waited, I learned a bunch of engrams, including metal tools and stone structures. After the metal was smelted, I was able to craft a crossbow and made a bunch of arrows to turn into tranks. After the arrows were finished, I made a metal hatchet and set off to find a raptor to tame. I traveled down the beach in my raft until I saw an opening where the river went inland. I decided to go down this river because it would probably be my best chance of finding a raptor. I spotted my first raptor on the beach, and I thought it looked too big to be a normal raptor. I got off my boat to check, and I'm glad I did because it ended up being an alpha raptor. If I somehow accidentally got his attention, it would be instant death, so I had to be careful. After seeing the alpha raptor, I noticed an otter swimming in the river and decided now was a good opportunity to tame it. I killed a saber-toothed salmon and dragged the body to the otter. The otter tamed instantly, and I threw it in my boat for safekeeping. I noticed some raptors down the beach, so I got my bolas out and ran towards them. I thought there was only one or two of them, but there was an entire pack. I realized I would need Spike's help for this tame, so I went back to the raft and got him. I engaged the raptor pack and bulled the highest level raptor. I then killed all the other raptors, but Spike was very hurt. I tried to bull the raptor for a second time, but I couldn't because of the cooldown timer. I eventually bulled the raptor again and tried to whistle Spike to run away, but he didn't listen. Because of this, Spike died and I lost my most powerful tame. I knew I had to finish taming the raptor or Spike's death would be a waste. I kept tranking the raptor and playing Ring Around the Rosie with it until it started running away. It was being extremely annoying and swimming in the river, so I couldn't take it down. Eventually, I crafted another bola and finally got it knocked out. The only downside was he ran to the opposite side of the river with the alpha raptor, so I had to be extremely careful to stay out of its range. I killed a dodo for meat, and things were not good when I got back to my tame. He is quite literally right next to my raptor. Are you kidding me? Are you absolutely kidding me? I was able to quickly sneak up to the downed raptor and put food in its inventory to tame it. I also was able to claim its baby, which meant I now had 2 raptors. I went back to the other side of the river and got Spike's saddle back. I then killed a trike to get hide for a raptor saddle so I'd be able to ride my new tame. Day 11 came to an end by naming my new raptor Chomper and riding her back to my boat. On day 12, I went on an adventure on Chomper to find a potential base spot and a replacement trike for Spike. I noticed another set of ruins that looked promising that I wanted to check out. Before I checked out the ruins, I decided to knock out a trike that was nearby. Due to the fact that I was on the back of my raptor, it was a very easy tame and I had no complications. I grabbed my raft, and by the time I got back to the trike, he was tamed and ready to go. I drove my boat over to the ruins and ventured on Chomper to scout them. On the path to the ruin, there was crystal which I harvested, and now I could craft a spyglass. The ruins ended up being the perfect spot for a base, and I wanted to make it my permanent home. But it could be a good base spot and a spot to like store all of our tames. I could gate off this whole area and we could call it home base. Okay, I think that's the plan. There were several entrances, but it could easily be gated off so no wild tames could get in. It also would have plenty of space to store my tames, so it was the ideal place to live. Although I did want to live in the ruins, it would be smarter to wait until I had better harvesting tames to save me time. So in the meantime, I would still use my raft base until crafting stone structures got easier. Now that I had decided to wait on building my base, the only thing left to do was focus on getting better tames. The next tame in the saddle order was unfortunately the Hyenodon. This is one of ARK's most useless dinos, so my goal was to get get it done as quick as possible and move on. I set off on Chomper into the forest and found a pond with a ton of dinos all around it. This was an extremely dangerous area, and I could see carnivores running all around me. While I was exploring, a group of raptors started chasing me, so I had to run from the area. Chomper had a ton of stamina, so the raptor pack would eventually lose interest if I just kept running. I got extremely unlucky when a microraptor stunned me off my tame at that exact moment. There was nothing I could do, and I knew I was going to die. With my final breath, I whistled neutral on Chomper so she could hopefully survive. Stupid microraptor. I really hate this game sometimes. I respawned and ran back to my raptor as quickly as I could, hoping she would still be alive. I made it back to my raptor and I was astonished to see that Chomper had killed everything. It was just the miracle I needed to not set me back any farther. The microraptor that caused my death had a baby, and I decided dying to its mother warranted me getting another tame by claiming it. I put meat in its inventory to make sure it didn't starve, and I repaired all my hide armor that broke when I died. I named the microraptor most annoying creature ever after the pain it just caused me, and day 12 ended. I force-fed Chomper some meat and waited until she was a little more healed before I continued to look for a pack of hyenas. By the time I was ready to go, my microraptor grew up and I put him on my shoulder. I traveled farther into the forest, and it wasn't long until I found something I wanted to tame. I had found a Kentrosaurus, which isn't rideable but has a powerful bleed effect, and anything that attacks the dino will hurt themselves badly. This would be the perfect tame for defending my base and making sure I didn't lose any more tames. This tame was an easy one, and I just ran circles around the Kentro on my raptor, dodging its attacks. Having a tame you can shoot off the back of makes taming slow creatures an absolute breeze. The Kentro was a level 90, so it took a while for it to go down. I just continued running circles around it until I was finally able to knock it out. I noticed this torpor was going down very slowly, so I was able to leave it and let it starve so I could instantly tame it when I was ready. In the meantime, I hunted for hyenodons. I lucked out when I found a pack of them deeper in the forest. I led them onto the beach and bowled the alpha of the pack. I was being an absolute noob, and I thought they were a simple knockout tame. I wasted a ton of trank arrows trying to down the pack leader until I realized they were a passive tame. I quickly built a simple trap and decided to try and trap one of them. The hyenodons were the biggest pain of my life to try and trap. No matter what I did, I couldn't seem to trap them, and they always got away. I got super close a couple times, but they always slipped away at the last second. After a long time, I finally got some of them trapped and decided to tame the lower level to make it easier on myself. Also, I was concerned about the Kentro waking up, so I needed to hurry and didn't have time for the higher level. Now that I had the hyena trapped, I needed to kill his whole pack to get him tamed. I hunted them all down by chasing and pouncing on them one by one. After the pack was killed, I went out of render distance of my tame and came back to tame him. It took me several tries, and I spooked him a lot, making it so I couldn't pet him. I finally got smart and placed a doorway in his trap that hid me from the tame. After placing the door, I was finally able to pet him and get him tamed. Oh my gosh, finally we got him. I named the hyena Cappy's Bane because I spent a ridiculous amount of time trying to get this useless tame that didn't help me much at all. Luckily, my Kentro was still down and it instantly tamed because of how starved it was. I claimed its baby and started the journey back to my base. On my way back home, I didn't anticipate having trouble making it back to base, so I paused my recording. This was a big mistake because the second I paused it, disaster struck. An alpha raptor started attacking my Kentro and there was nothing I could do. At the very least, the Kentro distracted the alpha raptor long enough for me to get away, but it was a big disappointment. On day 14, I realized I needed more trank arrows after wasting so many trying to tame the hyenodon. So I harvested a bunch of meat on Chomper so I could make more spoiled meat. Then I harvested narco berries on my new trike to craft into narcotics. It didn't take me long to get all the berries I needed, and I put them into the mortar and pestle. I crafted more trank arrows and repaired my crossbow, which was getting close to breaking. After getting all my chores done in the base, it was time to focus on my next tame, which was an Equus. It didn't take me long until I finally found one. The Equus was a decently low level and it would be very possible to tame. I only had mejoberries as my best taming food, and this made the taming process an absolute pain. Each time I fed the horse, it barely gave me any percentage. It was an extremely sketchy tame because I had no control of where it went, and I just had to hope it didn't run me into any danger. It got stuck for a while behind a rock, and I was hoping it would stay there, but eventually it got out and started running everywhere. He was almost tamed when a pack of raptors attacked me and killed the horse. I was absolutely devastated because the amount of time I wasted on that tame, and I would have to look for another one. I eventually found another Equus nearby my base that was level 20 and would be a lot easier to tame. He was also stuck inside the ruins where I wanted to eventually build my permanent base. It was completely safe in there and he couldn't seem to escape, so it was the perfect place to tame him. After a lot of steady progress, I was able to feed him enough mejoberries and get him tamed. Yes. We got our Equus tamed. Let's go. I didn't mind that he was such a low level because an Equus was not very useful to the overall challenge and he was just a tame I needed to progress past. While I was busy taming the horse, a Diplo had been causing havoc on my base and he knocked my tames everywhere. I was able to recollect my tames and didn't lose anything, but somehow Bowser got glitched into the boat. I don't know how Bowser got in the boat, but Bowser is now probably permanently inside of the boat. Ark, I love how glitchy you are still after all these years. During the Equus tame, all the meat I had been spoiling was finished and I was able to craft 150 narcotics, which completely set me up for several tames to come. After the narcotics finished crafting, I went into the jungle on Chomper to search for a scorpion. The jungle was extremely dangerous for me and I had to dodge many creatures, including an owl that aggroed on me. I also found a packy rhino, which was helpful information to know they spawned close to my base. I eventually found a pack of scorpions and decided which one I wanted to tame. Oh, perfect. I see one. Okay. There's 2 scorpions right here. It's level 20. Okay, what's the other level? And a level 85. Okay, let's try to get this level 85 guy here. Knocking out the scorpion was extremely easy because of their low torpor stat and slow movement speed. It only took me a few arrows and he was knocked unconscious. After feeding the scorpion spoiled meat, he tamed and I was able to progress to the next dino. I was able to get back to my base with no issues and day 14 ended. Now that I had a scorpion tamed, the next creature in the saddle progression was a Procoptodon. Day 15 was all about preparing for this tame and all the supplies I would need. My entire plan was to bully the kangaroo and build a trap around him like I did for the Hyenodon. Little did I know this plan would never work because you can't bolo them in ASA. I tried to get rare mushrooms from breaking crystals in the ruins, but I couldn't get enough of them, so I'd have to make the dangerous journey to the mangrove trees in the swamp. I made it to the border of the swamp with almost no issues and I crept into the mangrove trees. I was extremely scared I was going to get grabbed by a capra or stunned by a berry. Because of that, I harvested several trees that were on the very edge of the swamp to try and avoid this. As I was getting ready to leave, I heard something in the water and ran out of the swamp as fast as I could. I had around 20 rare mushrooms, which would hopefully be plenty for any Procoptodon I would find. I decided to run home through the jungle where they had a rare chance to spawn and hopefully get lucky. I made it all the way home with no luck, so I decided to check the lake where I had found a bunch of my other tames. Lo and behold, there was a rare spawn and a Procoptodon running around. I immediately tried to bolo him and of course it didn't work. I realized I was going to be in for a painfully long tame because I could not trap the kangaroo. I started tranking him and chasing him on Chomper when he ran away from me. He was easily twice as fast as my raptor and it was almost impossible to keep track of where he was going. Just when I thought things couldn't get any more difficult, an alpha raptor started chasing around the Procoptodon. If I didn't do anything, the Procoptodon would likely die and there was no telling how long it would take to find another one. I took matters into my own hands and got the attention of the alpha. If I got stuck, I would definitely die and lose my best tame, so there was no room to make a mistake. I made the alpha raptor bite a Bronto, which made the Bronto hit the alpha raptor. After the swing hit the alpha, its attention was completely on the Bronto. I couldn't believe that my maneuver had worked and I took the opportunity to get back to the Procoptodon tame. I got back to tranking the kangaroo and sniping it whenever I got a chance. Get me in phase the way I'd be flicking this Procoptodon is all I'm saying. By some miracle, he never got out of my sight and I was able to knock out the kangaroo. I fed it the rare mushrooms I collected and I added Judy Hops to my team of dinos. On day 16, it was time to tame a stego, which would significantly help me in these 100 days. A stego is a much better berry gatherer than a trike, and due to its ability to change forms, it's very useful. It can change its plates between 3 types to either deal damage or become more tanky. Because of this fact, I was really looking forward to getting this tame. After searching around my go-to taming area, I finally found a stego. It was level 60, which was pretty low, but I couldn't find any other stegos in the area. Because there were no other stegos and it was in a secluded spot, I decided to tame it and find a higher level later. My plan was to run circles around the stego with my raptor and shoot off the back of it. I found out quickly that my plan wasn't foolproof when the stego caught me with an ability that dismounts me from my tame. Luckily, I was far enough away from the stego that it couldn't hit my player, but I'd have to be much more careful as I continued this tame. As the taming process progressed, I got the hang of avoiding the stego by using my raptor's superior speed and maneuverability to avoid all the attacks. I would either just run away or jump onto a small ledge that the stego couldn't reach me on. Through these tactics, things were going perfectly and the stego was getting closer to knocking out. Things got complicated when it ran deeper into the forest.
There was another stego in the forest that I couldn't see that also started attacking me. This definitely made the tame more difficult, having to dodge 2 stegos, but the original stego was so close to knocking out it didn't matter. The level 60 stego went down and the other stego lost interest, so I had nothing to worry about. I used my spyglass to look at the other stego and I was annoyed to find out it was level 100. That would be a much better tame and I wish I had found the higher level stego first. I picked some bushes to get measure berries that would have the highest effectiveness, then I fed the stego. The stego was now tamed and I named her pack mule because most of her use would be in carrying resources for me. I started day 17 by crafting a ton of stone arrows for my next tame, which was the packy rhino. I didn't tame a high level stego, so I still had plenty of narcotics I could turn into trank arrows. I ran to the lake with Chomper because I saw a packy rhino in the area just a few days earlier. I noticed a Rex fighting several Brontos, which could be trouble if he won the fight because I had no way of killing it. My lucky streak continued when I found a packy rhino that was level 55. It was a low level, but I was preparing to tame it anyway when I spotted 2 more that I hadn't seen originally. One of them was level 140, which would be a game changer if I could get it. I bit the high level packy rhino and led it up the hill away from the Rex that could ruin my tame. 2 of them followed me up the hill and I came up with a plan.
So what we're gonna do actually, we're just gonna climb up here and just start shooting them.
I originally was planning on jumping up the mountain where they couldn't hit me and chasing after the packy rhino after they started to run away. I didn't even have to do this though because they both somehow got stuck and couldn't move at all. My crossbow was getting low on durability, which concerned me, but it was easy to rain arrows down on them. My concern was warranted when my crossbow broke before the 140 was knocked out. I quickly switched back to my bow and only shot 1 more trank to knock it out. I jumped down and wanted to get the aggro of the other packy rhino to lead him away. I initially wanted to kill him, but then I thought it might be beneficial to get a breeding pair. They would have a mate boost and I could make an army for base defense. Also, he was completely stuck, so there was no reason not to tame him. I knocked him out and quickly started gathering berries because their torpor was draining fast. I had to use some narcotics on the 140 whose torpor was already below half after such a short time. I put mejo berries into both dinos and after force feeding a couple more narcotics to keep them asleep, they both tamed. I named the 140 Big Mom because I had big dreams of making a packy rhino army and it felt fitting. I tried to lead them out of where they were stuck, but even after taming they couldn't move. I tried every whistle command and punching them out, but it didn't matter, they were very stuck. I decided the only thing I could do to get them unstuck was to craft a saddle. Luckily, Chomper had a bunch of hide in her inventory and I was able to craft a saddle immediately. The saddle did the trick and I decided to go on a much needed metal run. If I could find actual metal nodes, it would give me much more metal than any river rock could. I would be able to craft much better gear and prepare for future saddles that would cost a lot more metal than I currently had. I managed to climb up a hill and find a ton of real metal rocks. I also could use both packy rhinos inventory to help me carry all the heavy metal. With a successful tame and harvest, I went home to end day 17. Day 18 was a big day for advancing my gear. Now that I had a ton of metal, which was previously very difficult to obtain, I could craft a ton of gear. I started smelting all the metal and built 2 new forges to help it smelt faster. I also gathered a bunch of wood so I'd have enough fuel to smelt it all. While I was waiting for the metal to smelt, I decided to breed the packy rhinos and add to my number of tames. As it turns out, the breeding process takes a long time, so I gathered hide to craft new gear. I finally made a pike so I'd be able to defend myself in close combat, and I repaired my crossbow. By the time I finished that, the packy rhino egg was ready, and it turns out the beach was the perfect temperature to hatch it.
The start of the packy rhino army.
An army of them would help to protect my base while I didn't have any gates to block out wild dinos. After giving the new baby some berries, I could get back to making gear. I had enough metal that I could craft a full set of flak armor. I could completely skip the chitin tier of armor and get metal armor. This was a massive improvement from hide armor and would be much more reliable to keep me alive. I would actually be able to tank hits from wild dinos and I wouldn't have to be so skittish all the time. To end day 18, I waited until I could imprint on the baby packy rhino by hand feeding it a berry.
I have the imprint rates just boosted and the mature rates boosted, so I can actually get stuff done. Don't have to wait for babies to raise forever. So they take about as long as the tame would for a new dino.
On day 19 through 20, I went on a water adventure to get the next tame on the saddle list. The tame I needed to get is a manta, which would be extremely challenging and put my skills to the test. Before I could even think about how to tame a manta, I needed to retame a dolphin because my previous one had died. After grabbing my old saddle, I set out on Chomper to the mouth of the river to find a dolphin. After I got there, I found a saber-toothed salmon that gave me the fish meat I would need for the tame. I then searched around and spotted a few dolphins, but with the large large amount of sharks in the area, they would be difficult to get to. Going farther down the beach was also not an option because a high level Therizinosaurus was blocking it. I jumped into the river one more time and luckily a dolphin had swam inside. It was also far away from any sharks, so it would be safe to tame. He swam up to me and sat in one spot the entire time, making the tame go very smoothly. I put the saddle on my new tame and left Chomper on the beach where she would hopefully be safe. Now that I had a dolphin tamed, I could strategize the best way to get a manta and hopefully be successful. There were several hurdles I needed to get over to complete this tame. The first hurdle is I need angler gel to feed to the manta. I didn't have any scuba gear and the anglerfish spawned very deep in Ark's oceans. The second hurdle is mantas usually spawn in groups, so it'd be very hard to separate them, and my dolphin definitely would not be able to kill one. The final hurdle is that they are a passive tame and it would be hard to survive getting hit by their barbed tail. I started heading out towards deeper water to find an anglerfish to solve my first problem and got distracted by several oil nodes. I harvested what I could without dying, which would help me out in the future. While swimming on my dolphin, I noticed how horrible its stamina was. This would make diving all the way down to the bottom and back up literally impossible with no scuba gear. When I spyglassed a 145 dolphin, I decided I needed to tame it. I then led it to shore to make sure it was safe to feed. I was quickly in danger when I literally got swarmed by sharks and could not go anywhere. I thought I was close enough to shore to be safe, but they devoured my tame and I was left yet again without a water tame. Yeah, that thing's cooked. I decided to continue the tame on the 145 dolphin and managed to swim out to a spot with deeper water where I would be safe to tame it. I tamed the high level dolphin and named him Speedboat. Now that I had a good water tame, I would be able to complete my mission and start diving for an anglerfish. This was extremely tedious and I had to dive down then swim right back up more than I could count. I found a group of anglerfish and slowly started whittling them down. The anglerfish were very tanky and plesiosaurs kept chasing me whenever I got close, which slowed down my progress. Eventually I was able to kill a level 45 anglerfish and get the gel I needed without scuba gear. Now that I had the gel I needed to get, I was ready to tame a manta. Before I started to tame, I spotted a yellow drop on the beach that I wanted to get. Ooh, a dream and saber-tooth saddle. And of course there's angler gel in here. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? That is an absolute slap in the face right there. That is a slap in the face. After everything I just did and it's just in the drop, I found a 135 manta and started taming him. I was hoping to do the tame without a trap because it would take me forever to gather the resources away from base. I managed to hop off my dolphin at specific times and feed angler gel to the manta. My dolphin was taking massive amounts of damage by the occasional hit from the manta and it made the tame sketchy. I gravely messed up when Speedboat got stuck on a rock. I managed to escape to shore, but as you can guess, Speedboat died. For the third time, I had no water tames and was forced to do the tame with my character. I was able to swim out to the manta and get the final feed on him, but as I did, literally every creature in the area aggroed on me. I set my new tame on neutral and tried fighting with my pike, but there was nothing I could do to save my tame. To make things worse, all my armor broke and I died. I was failing epically, and if I wanted to progress in this challenge, I would need to turn things around soon. I spawned on the island nearby and was able to retrieve my gear. I decided to go back to base and repair my armor, then try again. I managed to make it back to base by using islands to help me cross, and I repaired all of my stuff. I then found a 140 dolphin and tamed it, which was now the fourth one that I had owned. I was not messing around with any high level mantas anymore, so when I found a level 20, I took the opportunity to tame it. It tamed with 1 feet of angler gel and I had him follow me back to base. Even though I had a lot of failures in these days, I finally got the job done and some water tames to show for it. On day 21, I had big plans for progressing and to make taming more efficient. Several of the tames I would need to get in the future only spawned in biomes far away from my base. Because of this, transporting them would take forever and there was no guarantee they would survive the long journey. My entire plan was to make cryopods that I could use to transport my dinos easier. Little did I know that cryopods don't work like they used to in ARK Survival Evolved, and I would soon have a bunch of tames stuck in cryopods. I had every resource I would need except for polymer, and I knew just where to get some. Earlier, I noticed several ducks swimming in the river and they gave organic polymer when you killed them. I ran down the beach and spotted a couple ducks. As I was preparing to kill them, I noticed a dimorphodon on the beach and decided to tame it. I didn't care about knocking it out in the water because it would tame fast enough that it wouldn't drown. The dimorphodon tamed, knocking another shoulder mount off the dino list, and I got the polymer I needed. I decided the fastest way to Blue Obelisk was to take my dolphin and park him on the beach.
A bunch of sharks gathered around to try and kill him, but it looked like they couldn't reach him. I ran towards the obelisk with all the materials I needed and was ambushed by a ton of wild dinos. Luckily, I had bolas on hand and was able to barely get away. In the future, if I came back to this island, I would need to bring Chomper to help protect me. I was able to carefully sneak my way into the blue obelisk and not get the attention of the terror bird nearby. I was able to craft 6 cryopods, and with my mission complete, I started the journey back home. When I was running down the hill, I noticed a gallimimus running around. After confirming the saddle order in my inventory, I realized this was the next tame I would need to get. I had plenty of trank arrows, so I thought I may as well tame him and get it out of the way. I realized very fast there was no way I could tame this guy with just my player. He was even faster than the Procoptodon, and I couldn't get more than 2 arrows off before losing him in the forest. I decided to go home and get Chomper when tragedy struck. Oh shoot, is Speedboat still safe? No, did he die? No! How did they get up to him? I'm so annoyed. Oh, I knew I shouldn't have parked him there. Oh. After losing my 5th dolphin, I absolutely raged. I realized although I might be able to handle myself on land, my ocean skills were seriously lacking. To make it back home, I quickly tamed a low-level dolphin so I wouldn't have to risk swimming between islands. Day 21 came to a close as I made it back to base with my new cryopods. On day 22, I faced the hardest challenge yet of the 100 days when I made a colossal mistake. I decided to go back to the island and tame the galley I saw. I wanted to bring Chomper with me to the island and not have to risk swimming across the water, so I decided it would be safer to store her in a cryopod. In this moment, I locked away my strongest tame and significantly made things harder on myself. I didn't realize my mistake until I tried to throw her out on the island and couldn't. To make things worse, just seconds earlier, I cryopoded my dolphin because I wanted to make sure it didn't die to sharks. This meant I was completely stranded on the island with no tames and would have to rely solely on my gear. Since I was on the island and had built a bunch of thatch structures to tame the galley, I decided to go through with the tame. My strategy was to wait until the galley got stuck on a tree or rock and build my thatch structures to get it stuck. I failed to trap the galley a ton of times and I was genuinely losing my mind. I tried trapping the galley throughout the entire night, and finally when morning came, I had it trapped. Now that the galley was trapped, it would be an easy tame and his speed wouldn't be an issue anymore. I put enough trank arrows into the galley to knock him down and tamed him. After he was tamed, I decided to lock him in a cryopod for a couple of reasons. Galleys have super low health and he was very unlikely to make the journey home alive. Also, I couldn't make a saddle for him, so I wouldn't be able to ride him home. After making this decision, I decided to look for a tame that would help me get home. I ran through the forest looking for something to tame when I got ambushed. An entire pack of raptors started attacking me. I tried my best to survive and I bullied one of the raptors in the pack, but it didn't matter. All my armor broke and I died for the 5th time. Fortunately, I spawned very close to where I died, which would make retrieving my items very easy. After spawning back in, I scoped out where I had died. I couldn't see any of the raptors that killed me, so I made a mad dash for my body. I was able to retrieve all my stuff, which meant I was back in the game. After getting my gear back, I was planning out what to do next when I spotted my saving grace. There was an iguanodon on the beach, which was just the thing I needed. Encountering this tame couldn't have been any more perfect. Not only was the iguanodon the next tame I needed, but it was a low level and the saddle was easy to craft. I was able to knock out the iguanodon, and after almost losing her to an oviraptor, I completed the tame. I named her Iggy, and after gathering some more hide, I was able to craft a saddle. Iggy was an extremely fast swimmer and I was able to island hop to get back home. Go, this is the best chance we're gonna get. Go, Iggy, go. Let's go, Iggy. Good work. Okay, we made it across. On day 23, my unlucky streak ended and things started to finally go well for me. After repairing my armor, I planned for my next 2 tames. I needed a Megaloceros and after that a mammoth. They both spawned in the snow biome, so I could knock out 2 birds with 1 stone if I tamed them both in one journey. I built a stone trap that would help me with these tames and a bed just in case I died. To finish preparing for these tames, I crafted a bunch more narcotics and started to gather hide. I wanted to make a Megaloceros saddle so I could ride the deer after I tamed it. This is because it would be much faster than Iggy and a better overall mount. While out getting hide, I noticed a baby oviraptor running down the beach. I decided to claim it and count it as a tame. I know I said I wanted to avoid getting tames in this way, but I couldn't pass up the opportunity of getting this dino. It'd be very helpful to start collecting a stockpile of eggs and would help me prepare for tames in the future. To make sure these 100 days are still challenging, I decided this would be the last time I got a new tame by claiming it as a baby. The only exception to this rule is if I tame a creature that has babies, I can claim them after the tame is complete. After making the Megaloceros saddle and a backup crossbow, I was ready for my adventure. After a long journey and another dangerous swim, I made it to the snow biome. I placed my bed in a safe area and started scouting the area. I was scouting the area to find a deer, and it didn't take long before an entire pack of direwolves aggroed on me. I ran for my life and I managed to get away. After unexpectedly seeing direwolves, I was inspired to tame one. They don't have a saddle, so I could tame one at any time, and if I could get a high level one, it would be my strongest tame by far. I built a stone trap on the beach and got the attention of some direwolves. I would later find out one of the direwolves that was chasing me was level 130. I tried leading them up the ramps of my trap, then swerving off at the last moment, but they avoided the trap. I tried for a second time and I made a mistake. I have no idea where that direwolf went. Uh-oh. Iggy's dead. We have to cut our losses. I lost track of the direwolf and it attacked me when I wasn't ready. Iggy barely didn't make it out of the trap and fell inside with the direwolf. Iggy died, but with her sacrifice, the wolf was trapped. With my trap, it was easy to knock out the direwolf and I didn't have any more problems. After knocking out the direwolf, I went looking for raw meat, not realizing I had some in my hotbar, and I spotted a deer. This was the perfect opportunity to get this tame, so I bulled the deer. I shot it with trank arrows, and as it went down, day 23 ended. As day 24 began, my new deer tamed and its speed was insane. I was able to jump over the taming box with no issues, which would make future tames very easy. After putting meat into the direwolf's inventory, I noticed 2 juvenile direwolves outside of the trap. As their mother tamed, I was able to claim them, which meant I had my own direwolf pack. I freed my direwolf from the trap, and brain rot got the best of me as I named her Sigma. I killed a rhino with her to get meat for the babies, then waited to imprint on them. After imprinting on the direwolves, it was time to tame a mammoth. My Megaloceros would be the perfect tame for scouting the snow biome because there's no way anything would be able to catch me. As I ran into the snow biome, there was a Utyrannus blocking the path. If it fear roared me, I could be in some big trouble and potentially get stuck on a rock. I was barely able to sneak past it and came very close to getting fear roared. I was now in the snow biome, and not being able to find a single mammoth was the least of my problems. I was freezing to death and I was dying quick. I made some campfires by holding my torch and it made it warm enough that I could regenerate. This moment of peace didn't last for long and I had to run again when another Utyrannus tried to attack me. I ran farther up the mountain and was forced to build a bunch of campfires again. I placed 2 campfires, but it wasn't enough. What do we need for another one? Stone and wood. There's stone. I need some wood, I need some wood. This is... Campfires are struck. Oh. Oh. I barely made it. Oh my gosh, that was a close call. I couldn't have cut it any more close than I did, and if I had died at the top of the mountain, my gear would be near impossible to recover. By the time it was day, I healed up and decided to run down the mountain. This is because it was way too cold on the top of the mountain and I hadn't seen a single mammoth up there. I ran down the mountain, and after making it back to warmer areas, I was finally able to spot a herd of mammoths. Although I had finally found a mammoth, this tame was shaping up to be a difficult one. The area he was in was extremely dangerous with all sorts of carnivores around. Also, he was way too far from the trap for me to be able to use it. I decided to start tranking him down and hope that nothing would aggro on the mammoth while I was trying to tame it. Luckily, the mammoth I chose was pretty low level and went down very quickly. Above all odds, it was one of my smoothest tames I have ever experienced and nothing interfered with it. I named my mammoth Manny to start the Ice Age themed names, and I was forced to cryopod him. There was no way he would be able to make the journey across the snow without dying, so I had no other choice. I made it back to my direwolf pack and was preparing to make the journey home when I spotted a 135 male Megaloceros. I decided I could make him my main mount because he was fast and could defend himself. I quickly tamed him and named this beast of a tame Hoss. While riding my new favorite tame, I began the journey home. With all the tames I got during this day, it was easily my most successful day of the 100 days so far. On day 25, I made it back to base with all my new tames. After quickly getting some more food and putting away the cryopoded mammoth, I went looking for my next tame. Literally the first spot I checked had a Diplodocus and I got ready to tame it. I also noticed a Doedicurus, which was the best tame for gathering stone and would be my ticket to making a large stone base once I could tame it. After making note of the Doedicurus, I started to tame the Diplodocus. The amount of trank arrows I put into this dino was ridiculous. He couldn't do any damage to me, so it wasn't hard at all to continuously shoot him, but the amount of arrows I had to use on this guy went through my entire supply. I broke all the way through one of my crossbows and had to craft more arrows in the middle of the tame, but eventually he started running away. He was literally a couple arrows from going down when a Rex started to attack him. There was nothing I could do other than watch him die and cry thinking about all the tranks I just wasted. I went back to base, repaired my crossbow, and crafted a bunch more arrows. I spotted a long tail down the beach from me and saw a level 15 Diplo. This would hopefully take far less trank arrows than the level 90 I was downing before, and it was in a much safer spot. After tranking him a bunch, he got super bloody and I was nervous he would die before knocking out. Thank you. Whew. Finally. He finally went down, and after getting some medjos on the trike, he tamed. I named him yet another useless creature because I was still salty about the resources I just wasted. As day 26 began, I was getting closer to being able to tame a flyer. This was my main goal, and I was more motivated than ever before to achieve it as fast as I could. The next tame I needed was a terror bird, so I went to check out my trusty lake taming spot to see if I could find one. I initially saw nothing and decided to loot a beaver dam, which gave me a bunch of cementing paste as well as rare flowers. After looting the beaver dam, I spotted a couple terror birds and started the tame. I led them out of the forest and bullied both of them. I started knocking out the higher level when I realized I should kill the lower level so he doesn't get in the way. After taking him down, the tame got very complicated. The other terror bird was now unstuck from the bola, and a Rex had joined him in attacking me. Haas absolutely carried me in this tame, and with his insane speed, I could dodge the Rex while still tranking the bird. I did take a couple hits, but when I did, Haas's jump would bail me out. Eventually, the Rex lost interest and I was able to lead the terror bird to a safer spot. I bullied him for the second time and I finished the job. Now that he was knocked out, I needed to harvest some meat. After bullying and killing a pterodon, I was able to feed him. I named him, and my creative genius struck again when I named him Terry the terror bird. This marked the end of day 26 and I had my tame follow me home. Day 27 began and I didn't even make it 10 feet before spotting my next tame. The Dodicarus I had spotted earlier during my Diplodocus fail was still there. It was also level 140, which would make it an elite stone gatherer. I crafted some more arrows to make sure I could knock him out and embarrassed myself by missing 3 back-to-back arrows. I led her up the hill and started pumping her with trank after trank. This dino is one of the slowest in the game and this made this tame go very smoothly. I didn't even have to use Haas to outrun her, and my character was plenty fast enough to not get hit at all. After a while of dodging attacks, the Dodicarus went into its shell. I thought it was close enough that I could still knock it out in its shell, but I was wrong. I wasted a ton of tranks while it was balled up until I finally decided to wait until it came out of its ball. Eventually she came out of her shell and I was able to put in the final tranks to knock it out. I picked some medjo berries for the Dodicarus and waited for it to tame. After she tamed, I named her Roly Poly and decided I needed to go on a metal run. With the amount of times I had to repair my gear, I was getting low on metal. I was nearby where metal spawned and the Doed had pretty high weight stats, so it was the perfect opportunity to harvest a bunch. I harvested all the metal I could with the weight my dinos had to offer, so I went home. When I got home, Bowser was blocking the forge and in cold blood, I killed him. Bowser, your time has come, buddy. I killed him in cold blood. Absolute cold blood killed him. Maybe this makes me a terrible person, but I was tired of him getting in my way in the boat and I snapped. After the terror bird and Dodicarus tame, I was getting low on narcotics again. I got a bunch of meat spoiling my inventory, then went on a harvesting spree on my trike. After getting the narcotics crafting, I repaired all my gear that was close to breaking. I then crafted a Dodicarus saddle for Roly Poly and day 27 ended. On day 28, it was time to tame a Sarco, and to say I wasn't looking forward to it is an understatement. The swamp is by far my least favorite biome in ARK, and I have died in it more times than I can count. My goal was to find a Sarco at any level as close to the edge of the swamp as possible and get this tame done as soon as I could. As a side note, before this tame starts, when I recorded this part of the video, the Dinosaurs update was not yet released. So if you're wondering why I never encounter one, that is why. But later in the video, the update did come out, so the Dinosaurs will be in this video. As I entered the swamp, I was very nervous and was prepared to die at any second. Luckily, I didn't run into any trouble before I found my first Sarco. I wanted to lead him out of the swamp where he would be a much easier tame. I was completely caught off guard at the Sarco's insane speed. He could almost keep pace with Haas, and this freaked me out. The Sarco got into a fight with some beavers, so I helped it to kill them so it didn't die. After the beavers were all dead, I noticed the Sarco was glitched out and was stuck on a rock. I started tranking him and was thankful for an easy tame. I was absolutely heated when the Sarco died before knocking out. No, he died. Are you kidding me? The beavers did too much damage to the Sarco, and I didn't think to drag a body to it. After searching around for a while, another Sarco randomly started attacking me. I ran away and started to lead him out of the swamp. I spyglassed him and saw that he was level 135. With such a high level Sarco at my disposal, the ocean wouldn't be an issue for me anymore. I was able to lead him out of the swamp and start knocking him out on the beach. The Sarco was super slow on land, which made things easy on me. I was almost done knocking him out when he ran away from me and managed to get into the water. He bolted into the swamp and I was never able to find him again. After 2 failures, I was hoping the 3rd time would be my lucky charm, so I led another Sarco onto the same beach. This time I learned from my mistakes and I led him extremely far inland. Even if he started running away, I would have enough time to knock him out before he reached the water. This Sarco was a level 85, which was definitely not as good as the 135, but it was better than nothing. He was the only Sarco close to the edge of the swamp, so he was my only option. As I was knocking him out, I realized I was actually really excited to have this tame. After seeing his incredible speed in the water, I wanted to use him as my main aquatic mount. I wouldn't have to rely on a dolphin anymore and would finally have a tame that could tank more than a couple of hits. He tamed and I gave him a name.
Let's get tamed up, man. There we go. We got our new Sarco. And Killer Croc, baby. Killer Croc.
On day 29, it was time to tame an Anky and a Saber. The moment I tamed both those dinos, I would finally be able to tame a flyer, which would make the game 10 times easier. I knew they both spawned in the area close to the snow and I would be able to reuse my trap. I had plenty of tranks left over, so I ran to the trap on Haas. Once I got there, it didn't take me long to find a group of Ankies. The group of Ankies was fighting some sabers, so I knew they were in the area as well. The highest level Anky was level 85, which would make a perfect metal gatherer in the future. After killing the low level Anky so he wouldn't get in the way, I started tranking the Anky down. I slowly led him down the hill towards the beach because I knew it was a safe area. This tame was very easy and I wasn't in any danger at all. Eventually the Anky went down and after picking some bushes he tamed. I named him Thwacky and decided to cryopod him because I was way too lazy to walk such a slow creature home. Although putting the Anky in the cryopod meant I had yet another useful tame I couldn't use. After I got a flyer, my biggest priority was to craft a cryo fridge and get everyone released. I eventually ran into a mixed pack of direwolves and sabers. After killing some of the direwolves, I was too low on health to safely continue the tame. After healing, I got the aggro of one of the sabers in the pack. I led him into the trap and unlike my direwolf tame, I didn't mess up the jump out of the trap. It ended up being a level 100, which made a decent tame, and I had a journeyman saber-tooth saddle to put on him when I got home. Aside from him freaking out in the trap and juking all my arrows, it was a smooth tame.
Oh my gosh, I can't even hit him. Ugh. He was glitching out so hard.
Eventually he went down and I fed him some prime meat to tame him. I decided to name him Diego to match my mammoth Manny and I went home. On day 30 I made it back home and a gift was waiting right on my front doorstep. There was a level 130 pterodon landed right next to my house and I wasted no time taming it. While I was knocked out in taming, I needed to get the materials for its saddle. I took out my direwolf and ran down the beach. After killing 2 turtles I had plenty of keratin for its saddle and so I crafted it. When I got back home the pterodon tamed and I named her the winged menace. I couldn't think of anything else and I was just so excited to be able to fly I didn't care.
Let's go. We can take to the skies. Finally.
I finally was able to fly, which would make literally everything easier. I would be able to find dinos I needed much easier and I would be able to gather resources I needed much faster. Now that I could get around the map super fast, the first order of business was to drop run. The first drop I went for was a green one and I had high hopes. The drop was actually pretty good and it had a ramshackle stego saddle which was extremely helpful. I hadn't crafted a saddle yet for my stego so it saved me the trouble of doing that and it was better than normal. The second drop I got wasn't as good as the first but it had some trank arrows to replenish my supply and some crop seeds which reminded me of the fact I needed to get some growing soon. The final drop on my drop hunt gave me some stone structures and food which would be helpful. Seeing the stone structures in the drop made me want to build my real base and now that I had good harvesting tames I could. During days 31 through 32 I started construction on my entire base area. After crafting a storage box to hold all my resources I started collecting as much as I could. I had several projects in mind and things I wanted to build. I wanted to build enough gates to completely block off the entire ruins and to make sure my tames are safe. I also wanted to build my main base that would have plenty of space for every crafting station I would need and a better refining forge area. Finally, I wanted to build a farm to grow all the crops I might need and a beer barrel. I needed to start brewing beer as soon as possible because the Chalicotherium tame was fast approaching. I crafted all the structures I would need and started building my base. I started by gating off my base and the gates literally fit perfectly. Whether it was the behemoth gate or the small gates, they were the perfect size.
After the base was mostly gated off, I had every single one of my tames follow me up into their new home. Once they were all inside, I finished putting up my gates, which meant my base was completely secure. I then built a super simple farm on the beach and got my irrigation system working. I collected all the poop I could and grabbed a bunch of vegetable seeds. Now that all my crops were set up to grow, I set up my beer barrel and started brewing. Now that my base was gated off and the farm was complete, it was time to build the main structure. I placed all the foundations for my base inside the upper covered area of the ruins. I then focused on placing walls and a couple doorways. With all the walls placed, my base was starting to take shape. I threw all aesthetics out the window, but my base is very functional, which is what I cared about. I covered my base with ceilings except for the final quarter. This final area I set up to be my forge area that would have easy access from the sky. I then placed a ton of storage boxes and my smithy into my base. After placing down some new mortar and pestles, my base was done.
We got the bed, fire, smithy, all of our mortar and pestle area, storage area, and our forge area.
Now that my permanent base was complete, it was time to get back to the taming challenge. I started days 33 through 34 by getting some much needed levels on the winged menace. I did this by killing an alpha raptor. It was easy to kill because I was able to hover over it and the raptor couldn't hit me at all. I was hoping for an improved crossbow, but he dropped nothing of value. At the very least, I got a ton of levels on my pterodon and player. Now that my flyer could hold her own in a fight, I was ready to get back to taming. The next two tames on the saddle list both happened to live in the swamp, so I was preparing for yet another dual taming mission. After crafting some narcotics, I was ready to start taming. On my way to the swamp, I got distracted when I saw a bunch of ducks swimming around. With the plentiful fish in the area, it was an easy tame. After a couple feeds, the duck was tame and I continued my adventure into the swamp. Once I was in the swamp, I flew around until I found my first capro. It was only level 20, but it would be an easy knockout. Tried to get its attention by attacking it, and literally like 5 things attacked my pterodon. I decided it maybe wasn't the best idea to tame that specific capro and went looking for another one. I ended up finding another capro and decided to try and tame him. At any moment he could rip me off my tame, so I had to be extremely careful. I landed on a tall rock and crouched down. My strategy was to shoot him only after I heard him use his grab ability. The moment I heard him use it, I would quickly shoot an arrow, then back up to the middle of the rock. This plan surprisingly could not have gone better, and it wasn't long before he started running away. I put some extra arrows into him as he ran away and he went down. I put some prime meat in his inventory and he tamed. Now that the capro was tamed, I crafted some more arrows to prepare to tame a frog. While I was crafting arrows, I noticed a snail.
What does that sound? Oh, it's a snail. Okay, we don't have sweet veggies, so we can't tame him yet. Let's see if we can find a frog. Oh, there's a frog. Please be high level. Is it meant to be? Perfect. That is literally meant to be.
Now that I had found a frog, it was time to tame him. I landed on the same rock, I tamed the capro and started tranking the frog. This tame was another smooth one and I had 0 issues. The frog wasn't able to hit me, and when it started running away, I was able to bola it. Now that I had every tame I set out to get, it was time to bring them home. I was very worried about them making it out of the swamp alive, but they both were very fast and nothing was able to attack them. We made it out of the swamp alive and my adventure ended in total success. I started day 35 by getting 2 drops that didn't really have anything good. After the disappointing drops, I refocused on the challenge and planned out my next tame. I needed to tame an Aranio, which required a lot of preparation. I checked on my farm and my plants were not producing fruit yet. This meant I would need to wait until I was able to craft bug spray. In the meantime, I killed a high level raptor with the winged menace and yet again got nothing of value. After the letdown of the alpha raptor's loot, I started grinding for a ghillie suit. I would definitely need one to tame the Aranio, so I needed a bunch of organic polymer. I started slaughtering Hesperornis, and after getting very little polymer harvesting one with my pterodon, I realized I needed a club. I crafted a club and it did the trick to get the organic polymer I needed. After I got home, I was able to craft a full set of ghillie for the tame. After crafting ghillie, my plants were finally grown enough that I could craft bug repellent. Now that I had everything crafted, I was pretty much ready to tame a spider. The only thing left to do was to craft up a few cryopods so I could get the spider out of the cave after it was tamed. So I flew to Blue Obelisk and crafted up a few more. I made it to Lava Island and I thought I might be able to find a spider outside of the cave. I flew around and I wasn't able to find a spider, but I did find something else.
Oh, it's a pyromane. No way. Level 55? We gotta get one of those guys. Maybe after we get the spider, we could tame one of those pyromanes. Oh! He's not nice.
I realized I needed to go down into the cave to tame a spider, so that's exactly what I did.
Full transparency, did turn on cave flyers to make taming things in the cave a little easier. but I won't run these caves with the flyer.
This was a nasty cave, and there were creatures absolutely everywhere. I eventually found a low-level spider that would be my target. After killing some snakes, I landed and put on my bug spray. I crept towards the spider to feed it, and it suddenly turned and aggroed on me. I quickly had to run back to my pterodon and let him calm down. After I got back to the spider, I got my first feed and tamed him 70%. After the first feed, all the creatures aggroed on the winged menace, and I was forced to fly away. Because I was forced to fly away, the spider's percentage started going down again, and by the time I fed him again, it didn't fully tame him. It didn't matter though, because I was able to get another feed on him and get him tamed. I crowed my new spider and left the cave to end day 35. On day 36, I had only one goal in mind, and that was to tame a pyromane. After seeing so many of them running around the island, I wanted one extremely bad. If I could get a pyromane, it would be a guaranteed way to bail myself out of bad situations. This is because I could hop on it at any time if I was in danger. I scouted around the island looking for a pyromane, and it didn't take me long to find one worth taming.
There's a pyromane over here. Oh, it's a 140 male. Okay, there we go. We found our guy.
After quickly making a trip back to base to get some structures, I built a trap. I built a stone raft design that would make it easy to trap the pyromane and keep him doused. Now that the raft was built, I built the pyromane and led him down the mountain towards the raft.
Wow, he's fast. We got burned, that's fine. That's expected. Okay, he ran all the way down the mountain. That's perfect. This is exactly where we want him to go.
He kept avoiding the gate and almost killed my bird with his flames.
Alright, he's hurting our pterodon pretty badly. We need to be careful. Come on. Come on in here. Oh, jeez. Force feed him. We need to heal off this burn. Can we extinguish? Okay. Whew.
After quickly healing up, I was able to lead him in the trap and get him stuck.
There we go. He's in. Please stay in. Please stay in the trap. Okay, we got him. We got him in the trap. Perfect.
I wanted to bring him to an area that had a bunch more dinos to kill and wasn't as dangerous as where I found him. He did start biting my wood foundations, which made me nervous that he was going to break out. Because of this, I had to hurry in finding a location to tame him. I was able to whittle him down with my pterodon and by shooting him with stone arrows. Eventually he got low enough on health that I was able to ride him. I killed a bunch of dinos as fast as I could and got him tamed.
There we go. We got our pyromane. Let's go. And we're gonna have Lenny the lion. Let's go. I do not know how to do any of his abilities, so we're gonna have to figure out that. And we did lose some effectiveness on him, but he's still a really high level guy, so I'm excited for that.
After making it back to base, I tested out Lenny and killed a bunch of dinos. This tame was truly more OP than I could even imagine. He has 60 armor and sets everything on fire with a single attack.
And then we hold down right click. I think it leaves the yeah, there's the flame trail. Holding down right click. Yeah, burn, baby, burn. Meat in his inventory? Oh, I love you even more. I love you even more.
To continue the challenge on day 37, it was time to tame a parasaur. It didn't take me long to find a decent level one, and I landed on a cliff to start knocking it out. This didn't go as well as I was hoping because it didn't take him long to start running away from me into the swamp. After finding him again, I led him away from the other parasaurs and used a weird grouping of rocks to keep kiting him. I used my pterodon speed to continuously get arrows off on him and chase him down when he started running away. This cycle repeated many times and I was slowly making progress. I eventually got the smart idea to lead him off an even larger cliff that he couldn't get back up from. I then was able to shoot a ton of trank arrows into his dumb looking face. He started running away again, and this time he was about to knock out. After chasing him down, I was able to knock him out. I picked some bushes and put berries into his inventory. While he was down, I decided to try and tame a Diplocalus. It didn't take me long to find one, and I was able to land a bull on him. I downed him, and by the time I got the meat I needed, a Sarco snuck up on him and killed him. After that annoying loss, I was able to get another one knocked out and tamed. By the time I was finished with my shenanigans, the parasaur was tamed and was ready to be cryopotted. After making it back home, I decided it was long overdue to craft the cryo fridge. I had a ton of important tames that were all trapped in cryopods that I wanted to use. I crafted a Sarco saddle for Killer Croc. I then decided I would take him out on an adventure to get oil and silica pearls. After making it out into the open ocean, I started harvesting oil. This time I did a thorough job and I wanted to make sure I would basically never have to harvest oil again. I didn't know that ARK had changed the texture on pearls and they didn't glow anymore. I wasted a ton of time swimming around and looking for glowing pearls that I would never find. Eventually I gave up and just looked up where to find pearls. It turns out there were a bunch of pearls very close to my base and I harvested my fill of them. After getting some pearls, I was ready to craft a cryo fridge. I started crafting some spark powder to make a fabricator and quickly got some more crystal. I was able to make the fabricator and my base had the perfect amount of space for it. After placing down the fabricator, I crafted a bunch of electronics. After the electronics crafted, I was able to make a generator that would power the fridge. I set off for Blue Ob and on my way killed a duck for polymer. I was able to craft the cryo fridge and now I could release my tames that had been trapped for so long. After placing down the cryo fridge, I was able to set free the 8 tames that were locked away.
Chomper, our good old trusty Chomper. Let's go, he's finally free. He's one of the OG tames and he's finally out of the cryopod.
I didn't care about cryo sickness and I freed all of my tames to end day 38. Now that I had my new cryo fridge crafted, nothing was holding me back anymore. Now I could transport my dinos back to my base with ease, which meant I could fully focus my attention on taming. On days 39 through 40, my goal was to tame a Chalicotherium. To prepare for this tame, I made a bunch of water jars and grabbed my nearly broken ghillie suit. I then headed down to the farm and was able to grab 4 beer from the beer barrel. After grabbing the beer, I needed to repair my ghillie suit. This meant I yet again needed organic polymer, which meant it was time to hunt more ducks. After getting the polymer I needed, I was pretty sure I hunted the ducks to extinction. Now that my ghillie suit was repaired, I started looking for a Chalicotherium. On my way to find one, I spotted another alpha raptor and decided to take him down. This decision changed the course of the 100 days.
Oh, no way. Yes, we got an improved crossbow from that. Let's go. Oh my gosh, that is so big that we got that.
When it died, it dropped not just 1 but 2 improved crossbows. This is maybe the luckiest I've ever gotten in my life, and the addition of these crossbows would cut my trank arrow use in half. I began searching the jungle for Chalicotheriums and I wasn't having any luck. I flew around a bunch of different spots, but there was not even one to be found. These guys were absolutely elusive and I was losing my mind constantly searching. While searching, I spotted a moss chops and decided to take the opportunity to get an easy tame. After feeding it a tinto berry, he tamed and I took another dino off of the list. After looting a drop that ended up having some decent stuff, I decided to give up my search in the jungle. I headed towards the snow instead and I was hopeful that I would have better luck there. When I got to the snow, I realized another OP benefit of the Pyromane. Its cuddled by fire ability meant I would never get cold in the snow no matter what. I don't know why Chalicotheriums are so rare, but I spent forever searching. I felt like the search would never end and my finger was permanently glued to the W key. While on my search, I spotted a bunch of penguins. Since I had hunted the ducks to extinction and I would need polymer very soon for scuba gear, I decided to harvest them. While I was in the snow, I also wanted to tame one of them. After landing on the giant iceberg, I angered the penguin swarm and knocked one of them out.
Look at them all.
After he was down, I did the only thing logical left to do and I killed his child. I then proceeded to feed it to him and got him tamed. During these 100 days, I really learned I might need to see a doctor because I was absolutely unhinged. After the penguin tamed, I finally found a Chalicotherium to tame. As I parked my pterodon, I also saw a second one that was a better level. I decided to tame the higher level one, so I started stalking him. I fed it and I was completely surprised to see it tame with only 1 beer. I was worried about not having enough, but I had plenty. I decided I might as well tame the other one as well because I wouldn't be using the beer for anything else. The second tame went just as well as the first, and after putting him in a cryopod, I was ready to head home. I got back to base on day 41 and I released all the new tames I just got. The next tame I would need to get is the Pelagornis, which would be an easy tame. Although the Pelagornis would be easy to tame, the tame after it would be a serious challenge. The tame after it is a Dunkleosteus, and I would most definitely need scuba gear to tame it. I checked to see if I could craft scuba gear and I was completely out of metal. I decided to go on a metal run with the Winged Menace so I could get it smelting while I tamed the Pelagornis. I used the Winged Menace to fly me to the metal and started harvesting. After I got a bunch of metal, I split its weight between the Winged Menace and Lenny. This worked out perfectly and I ran home with no problems. After getting the metal, I decided to craft a mammoth saddle to get wood for the forges. I crafted the saddle and hit a tree only to find out the mammoth had been changed and collects more thatch than wood. I was super annoyed and I would have to continue harvesting by hand until I got a beaver. I finally got the forges going and set out to tame a Pelagornis. I flew to the back of the island that I originally spawned on, and there were a ton of them. The only problem is they were all flying over the top of the ocean. I wouldn't be able to knock them out midair because I can't shoot off the back of my pterodon. Also, I couldn't attack one of them and lead it to land because they aren't aggressive. Eventually I lucked out when one of them landed on the island. I was able to bullet it and it went down with literally one arrow. After collecting some fish meat on Lenny, I was able to get it tamed and I started flying home. To end day 41, I picked up a couple drops and got some mediocre loot. On day 42, I started preparing for the Dunkleosteus tame. I crafted my scuba gear and was able to make flippers as well as 4 scuba tanks. After those were crafted, I made a bunch more stone arrows to make sure I wouldn't run out. After the arrows were made, I was ready to attempt the Dunkleosteus tame. I decided to use Killer Croc for this tame because he was fast and would probably be able to kill some sharks if I needed to. Once I got into the ocean, I confirmed this by killing a megalodon and getting a bunch of fish meat for the tame. I also got a drop that had a couple extra tranks to help me with my tame. On my way out to deeper water, I found the Skull Island, which looked absolutely amazing. I started searching the ocean and I wasn't sure what depth they spawned at. Because I didn't know where they spawned, I would have to check shallow and deep water. I started by checking out the shallow water and I didn't see one. I figured they probably spawned deeper, so I started to dive down. It wasn't long before I got the worst jump scare of my life and an alpha lead sick beast started chasing me.
Oh, jeez. That is not what we want to see down here. That scared me so bad. Oh my gosh, that scared me so bad.
I swam for my life and luckily Killer Croc was barely fast enough to get away. I dove down a second time, making sure to avoid the giant whale. I think I dove too deep this time because I encountered a mosasaur and a giant squid. These tames were definitely above my pay grades, so I swam away. I finally was able to find a Dunkleosteus, but it was only a level 15, which was kinda disappointing. It was the only one I was able to find, so I started tranking it. Chasing this thing around reminded me why I hate Ark's oceans. It was super dangerous and there was a water dino that could kill me at every turn. After a while of tranking the donkey, I spotted another one that was level 100. I decided to abandon the level 15 and start knocking out the level 100. I put as many arrows as I could into it and did my best to dodge the insane amount of creatures that were following me. Any water creature that you can think of was probably chasing me at some point during this tame. It was just a constant theme of tranking out the donkey and dodging attacks. Eventually the donkey went down and I could start taming it.
Is he down? Yes, he's down. Okay. Beautiful. Uh-oh. This is not good.
The only problem was that I had to figure out how to get the 5 megalodons and alpha megalodon to de-aggro from me. No matter how far I swam away, they wouldn't leave me alone. I had to quickly put meat in the donkey's inventory and kited them around until it was tamed. It tamed, and after cryopotting the donkey, I spotted a giant underwater bubble. It ended up being a giant air bubble, which was cool, but at the end of the day, there was nothing there for me. I was almost home when day 43 began and I spotted a 145 pterodon. I decided it would be a good idea to tame this pterodon just in case the winged menace died. If he died and my stuff was stuck across the map, there'd be no way to retrieve it without a backup flyer. After getting home on Killer Croc, I flew on the winged menace to find the pterodon.
No, you don't. Perfect. He's down.
I was able to bullet him and get him unconscious. I went to look for prime meat to tame him and I spotted an alpha raptor. I took down the alpha raptor and I yet again got another improved crossbow, but most importantly, I got a really good pickaxe. This would make harvesting metal a lot easier and more efficient. I perfectly tamed the backup pterodon and named him Big Chungus. After getting him home, I repaired my armor and went to the redwoods to find a dire bear. When I got to the redwoods, I got the best drop of the 100 days so far. There was a 100 armor ascendant stego saddle in the drop. Putting this on a high health stego would make it basically impossible to die. This saddle would definitely come in handy in the future when I would have to tame a ceratosaurus. After that amazing drop, I immediately found a dire bear to tame.
Alright, and here's a dire bear already. 135. Okay. Here's the luck that I'm talking about, Ark. Here's the luck that I need in my life. This is the kind of treatment that I want.
I started to trank him, but he was faster than I expected and kept running away from me. Eventually, I gave up trying to tame him by standing at the top of a cliff. Instead, I used my Terra to get off trank arrows and started slowly making progress. He started running away and swimming in the water. I had to be careful not to down him in the water or he would drown. Eventually he got back to land and started getting attacked by a terror bird. The bear was low on health from getting tranked, so I had to kill the bird or he would die. After the terror bird was dead, I couldn't find the bear for the life of me. I don't know if he had just escaped into the forest or somehow went down in the water, but I failed to tame. I didn't have enough tranks left to down another bear, so I'd have to restock at home. Even though I failed, I didn't want to go back empty-handed, so I decided to tame Gigantopithecus. Luckily this was an easy tamed and I named him Harambe to honor the gorilla. I crowed him and day 43 ended. On days 44 through 45, I went back to the redwoods to get redemption for my failed tame. To prepare, I grabbed all the narcotics in the mortar and pestles and repaired all my armor. After getting some more narcotics crafted, I started gathering resources for a trap. I learned my lesson trying to tame a dire bear without a trap, and I wasn't going to repeat history. It did too much damage and it was way too fast to tame without a trap. After gathering everything I needed, I was ready to go back to the redwoods. When I got there, I started cautiously flying around. I looked at all the trees as I flew past to make sure no thylacoleos took me off my tame. Even though I had Lenny, they would still be dangerous to me. If they pinned me to the ground, I wouldn't be able to throw Lenny out and I would die. After a while of scouting, I found a dire bear, but it was too low level to tame. I also spotted a level 100 thylacoleo that I could potentially tame in the future. Eventually I saw a 145 Carno, and right below him was a level 55 dire bear. The next tame after the dire bear was a Carno. Because of this, I thought it would be worth taming a low level dire bear if I could get a high level Carno. So I set up my trap to tame them both. After the trap was set, I tried to trap the dire bear. I had the hardest time of my life trying to trap this dire bear. It would not go in the trap no matter what I did. On top of that, to get its attention, I needed it to bite me, and it was chewing through my pterodon's health fast. To make things worse, the one time it was about to go into the trap, it completely glitched out.
Come on, don't glitch out of there. Are you kidding me? How does it do that?
I eventually learned I needed him to chase me completely into the trap and let him hit me while doing it. This worked and I got the dire bear trapped. I killed a deer to get food for the winged menace and so she could heal. I then started tranking the dire bear, and now that I was trapped, I had nothing to worry about. After a bunch of tranks, the dire bear went down. I then went out on Lenny and harvested some meat for the tame. Once he tamed, I named him Yogi and put him in a cryopod. I scouted for the Carno on the winged menace, but it was gone. The entire reason I tamed this low level dire bear was gone, and I was extremely annoyed. I gave up and started looking for a different Carno, and down the beach from my trap, I found a level 130. It wasn't as good as the 145, but it was still a high level and close to my trap. I let it into my trap, and unlike the bear, it went in first try. My improved crossbow came in clutch in this tame, and it knocked out the Carno in no time. After it was down, I killed a Diplo and Lenny to get some prime meat for the Carno. The Carno tamed, and I named her Cassidy the Carno. Day 46 started when I got back to base and I threw out all my tames. The next tame on my list was a Megalodon, and I was already prepared for it. I set out on Killer Croc and I looted a drop that had some structures on the way out to the ocean. This tame again reminded me why I truly hate Ark's oceans and why it's so hard to tame anything there. Eventually spotted a 130 Megalodon and decided that it was high enough level. I couldn't get any progress tranking it with all the other sharks around, so I tried to whittle them down. When I tried to kill them, all the sharks in the area swarmed me. I don't know how sharks so far away can aggro on me and join the fight, but they did. There was even an alpha megalodon that was chasing me that I had to deal with. I did my best to kill as many sharks as I could, but it was taking its toll on Killer Croc's health. Eventually I got the 130 by itself and got it stuck on a rock. I got a bunch of progress knocking it out because of this. The shark got free and even more sharks joined to attack me.
Oh, this is a disaster. They're all after me again. Okay, that's the one we want. So we're just gonna keep trying to trank it, I think.
I gave up on trying to kill them and focused on dodging their attacks while tranking the shark I wanted. The Sarco's speed allowed me to do this, and it was working way better than trying to kill them all. After a while, the shark started running away and I was able to get it knocked out. Luckily, the other sharks wouldn't attack the unconscious one, so I was able to lead them all away. I waited on land while the shark was taming so I'd be safe from all the water creatures. This worked out well and the shark tamed. I named the shark Bruce and day 46 ended. On day 47, I needed to tame a Baryonyx, which meant I had to go to the swamp again. I had all the trank arrows I would need, so I headed towards the swamp. On my way there, I got an insane drop.
Something good. Ooh, that is something good. A Mastercraft shotgun. And I've been getting tons of shotgun ammo, so that'll be really good.
It had a Mastercraft shotgun in it. This would be the perfect weapon for protecting myself in close range, and it would make it way harder for me to die to anything. Also, a lot of the drops I've been getting recently gave me shotgun shells, so I had plenty of ammo to use. I flew towards the swamp and my luck continued. There was literally a level 130 berry sitting on the beach just outside the swamp. I couldn't ask for a better situation. It was a high level and it was already out of the swamp, which is a way safer area to tame it. I built a wood trap since it wouldn't be able to break it in the time I would need to knock it out. I was worried he would stun me off of my pterodon while I was leading him in the trap. To prevent this, I flew fast enough that he wouldn't be able to use his stun move.
Ooh, he got close to him. He's a lot faster than I thought he would be. Okay, he's in. He's in. Perfect.
This worked out perfectly and I was able to trap the berry without getting stunned off. Now that he was in the trap, I put enough arrows into him for him to knock out.
Perfect, then he's down. But that ragdoll did not look very good.
Then I hopped on Lenny and killed a diplodocus nearby for prime meat. I soon realized he needed fish meat and so I flew to get some. I didn't realize there was another berry in the area and I almost got close enough to be stunned off. After getting the fish meat I needed, I tamed him and went home. On days 48 through 49, I went on an adventure into the redwoods. I needed to tame a thylacoleo and a megatherium. They both spawned in the redwoods and I had a trap there, so it was perfect. Both of these tames are very powerful and could actually be useful for the endgame boss. The thylacoleo has a bleed effect that would help to do percentage damage to the boss. Also, the megatherium gets enraged from killing bugs, so it'd be very helpful in killing the broodmother. Because of these reasons, I wanted to tame the highest levels I could possibly find. The first half of the redwoods had no visible thylas that I could see except for the level 100 I found earlier. It was a decent level, but I wanted to find a higher level if possible and one that was closer to my trap. I got to my trap and started looking around the area. At first I only found a low level, but then I found two super high levels. I found a level 140 female and a level 145 male. I could not believe my luck. If I got both, I could breed them to get a super strong imprinted thyla. I decided just to tame the male for now, and eventually I could come back for the female if I needed to. I sniped the male out of the tree so I wouldn't have to risk getting pounced on. After he was out of the tree, I led him all the way down towards my trap. I took a couple hits, but overall it went pretty smooth to get him close to my trap. Once he was near the trap, he started fighting a dire bear, and I was worried he might die.
No, don't attack the dire bear. What level is this thing? Okay, it's gonna kill it. We're fine.
Luckily, the dire bear was a low level and was no problem for him. After the bear died, I was able to lead him in my trap on the second try and start knocking him out. I was excited for this tame because he would be a strong dino to have and I could potentially run caves on him if I wanted to. After he knocked out, I killed a Diplo to get a bunch more prime meat. After he tamed, I named him Sylvester after the Looney Tunes character. I looked at his stats and I was surprised to see he had 6k health base after tame.
Wow, 6k health tamed? That's insane.
I was really happy with how his stats turned out and I would have to tame the female soon to breed with him.
We'll look for a megatherium here now that he's cryopotted.
I don't know what was up with my luck today, but when I found one, it was level 145.
No way. Literally a 145 right here. That's ridiculous.
It was literally the first one I had seen and it was almost a perfect max level. The luck I had on this day seriously made up for how much I struggled in the early game. I was able to lead it in the trap with no problems and started tranking it out. Because of my insane crossbow, it didn't take me long to knock it out. I then hunted yet another Diplo for some prime meat and fed it to the sloth. After it tamed, I named it Sid's Granny to match my Ice Age themed names and I was ready to head home. On day 50, it was time to tame a woolly rhino. Since I was already so close to the snow and had the arrows I needed, there was no reason to go home. I flew to my trap by the snow and started spyglassing rhinos. I didn't have any luck for a while and only found a few low level rhinos as well as a ton of mammoths. I wanted a high level rhino because this was another tame that could be useful in the boss fight. Eventually I was able to find a 145 rhino, but it was super far from my trap. I flew back to my trap and picked up the entire thing to reuse it. I set up my trap and I thought this was about to be an easy tame. Little did I know this was about to go horribly wrong. I tried to trap the rhino and it was not cooperating. It was extremely glitchy, just like my dire bear, and would not fall in the trap. With each attempt, the damage my pterodon was taking was adding up and the winged menace was seriously hurt. One attempt, the rhino literally glided out of the trap and I raged.
Alright, there's no way you can get out of it. This game is horrible. This game is terrible. How do you get out of the trap like that? Are you kidding me? How?
After that, I healed and tried trapping it again. Nothing worked and the worst case scenario happened. The rhino charged off the edge and fell all the way down into the water. I was able to continue the tame and decided to start tranking it. I wasn't even gonna bother with the trap because it would glitch out no matter what I did. I tried landing on some tall rocks and getting tranks off when I could. This didn't work out very well because it was able to somehow climb most of the rocks and get to me. This continued for a while and I was slowly making progress. Just when I thought things were going well, I made a huge mistake. I tried jumping between the rocks and I fell into a crack. I was able to jump out of the crack and I was trying to get on Lenny when it hit me like a truck. It broke all my armor and it wasn't done attacking me yet. It charged me and there was nowhere I could run to. I died and day 50 ended in complete failure. I respawned back at my base and I started day 51 by making another pterodon saddle. After it was crafted, I put it on Big Chungus and bolted towards my body. I wanted to make sure my stuff didn't despawn and that Lenny wasn't being killed. In this moment, I was very glad I decided to tame the backup pterodon and I don't know what I would have done without it. I made it back to where I died and everything was fine. The winged menace and Lenny were safe. Also, the rhino was still there and hadn't despawned in the time it took me to fly back. After getting all my stuff, I contemplated what I should do next. After taking a closer look at the rhino, it was extremely bloody and injured. There was no way I could continue to tame on the rhino or it would die before knocking out. This meant I would have to wait for the rhino to heal before I could reattempt the tame. I flew home and once I got back, I repaired all my armor. I decided to replenish my supply of narcotics while I was waiting for the rhino to heal. As I was preparing to harvest meat with Lenny, there was another high level pterodon in my base. I decided to quickly knock it out since having another flyer really couldn't hurt. After harvesting a bunch of meat to spoil and narco berries with the stego, I crafted a bunch of narcotics. Before I left my base, I wanted to craft a magnifying glass. I did this to make sure the rhino was healed enough and to help check torpor of future tames. Before I went back to the rhino, I wanted to make sure it had plenty of time to heal. In the meantime, I went back to the redwoods to tame the 140 female thyla I saw earlier. I couldn't pass up the opportunity of getting a strong bred thylacoleo for the final boss fight. After getting it down from the tree, I started leading it towards my trap. This time, it was really easy to lead the thylacoleo to my trap. I barely had to take any hits on my pterodon. My last thylacoleo tame, it was very easy to get him into the trap, but this time that was not the case. The thylacoleo would either lose aggro at the last second or quite literally float its way out of the trap. After taking a bunch of damage, I finally got it trapped and could start taming. I downed the thyla and started to get prime meat for it. While killing some parasaurs, I saw an alpha carno and decided to kill it. Lenny was an absolute beast and killed it with no problems at all.
Alright, he's really hurt now. Boom! And he's down. Alpha Carno taken down by Lenny easily. I want 10k health on him. And the rest can go into melee.
With all the prime meat from the alpha, the thyla tamed and day 51 ended. On day 52, it was time to redeem myself and tame the rhino that killed me. After a short flight, I was able to find the 145 rhino again. Now that I had the magnifying glass, I was able to check its health and I saw that it was completely recovered. After crafting some more trank arrows, I was ready to tame the rhino. I started the tame on a cliff where it couldn't reach me. It stayed at the bottom trying to hit me for a while and I shot it a ton. Although the cliff was the perfect height to not get hit, it was extremely glitchy. At one point I shot 3 arrows that got stopped on nothing. The cliff's hitbox was so glitchy the arrows were literally floating. After a while of tranking the rhino, it started running away, so I had to chase it down. I shot off a couple of arrows as I chased it and would fly out of its reach when it got close. Eventually I led it back to the cliff and continued the tame. The rhino almost killed me yet again when it managed to climb on the cliff. I reacted quick enough to get on my pterodon before my armor broke, but it was a close call. After landing back on the cliff, the rhino got the karma it deserved. It got stuck in the same crack it killed me and couldn't move. I finished knocking out the rhino and got it tamed. I was able to redeem myself and tame a rhino that would be high enough level to run the boss. After I got home, first order of business was to breed my new thylas. I set them on breed and harvested some meat on Lenny for their baby. When I got back, the baby was born and I claimed it. After checking the parents' stats, I was ecstatic. It had the best health and melee from both parents on the first try. This was incredibly lucky to get all the best stats after only one breeding, so I was over the moon. To end day 52, I imprinted on my new baby with a pet. After getting such a good baby thyla, I was inspired to breed pyromanes, so on day 53, that's exactly what I did. Lenny was by far my strongest creature, and if I could get an imprinted one, I would be unstoppable. Not only would the pyromane help me complete the taming challenge, but it would be my main carry in the final boss fight. I flew back to the raft trap I used with Lenny and I had some improvements for it. I placed a bunk bed I got from a drop just in case I died, and I replaced the almost broken wood foundations with stone. After fixing up my raft, I started scouting for pyromanes. I found a couple pyromanes right away, but none of them were female or a high level. I got distracted from scouting for pyromanes when I spotted a red drop. The drop had a bunch of useful endgame items and weapons. For the time being, I didn't want to wear the riot armor, so I continued wearing flak armor because it was much easier to repair. After storing everything I got from the drop, I got back to looking for pyromanes. I found a couple more low levels before I spyglassed one worth taming. I found a 150 pyromane, which is the max level in Ark, and I was freaking out. This is the best case scenario I could hope for, and if I could get this tame, it would be huge. After moving the boat, I was ready to trap the pyromane. Unlike my last pyromane tame, I was easily able to trap the 150 and didn't even get damaged. With a full stone trap, I was able to bring the boat to the mainland where I saw a bunch of dinos to kill. I shot the pyromane with my shotgun and used my magnifying glass to see how much damage I did. I finished the job with my crossbow and I rode the pyromane. I almost messed up the tame when I couldn't jump out of the boat and got stuck. Luckily, there were some raptors on the beach I was able to kill fast enough that the timer didn't run out. The only dino left in the area was a trike, so I started to battle it. The tame came down to the wire, and I killed the trike with 1 second to spare on the timer.
Come on. Go down, buddy. Perfect. Left control, +1. Tamed it, let's go!
Even though it lost some effectiveness, it was still a very strong tame and all the base stats were better than Lenny's. After getting home on day 54, I bred the pyromanes and yet again I got a perfect baby. After imprinting on this pyromane, she would be unstoppable and would be my ride or die for the rest of the 100 days. I named her Sunfire and got a 100% imprinting bonus on her. Now that my pyromane was taken care of, I refocused on taming. I needed to tame an arthropleura, which is another annoying passive tame that can go south very quickly. To prepare for this tame, I crafted a couple more bug repellent and grabbed my ghillie. Now that I had everything I needed, I flew to the lava cave. When I got to the cave, I spotted 2 arthropleuras off the bat, but they were both level 140. This tame would be hard enough even taming a low level. I didn't need the extra stress of taming a high level, so I kept looking. I didn't care about taming a low level because this tame was not going to be useful for me in any way. Its main use is destroying structures, and in a PvE environment this is not helpful at all. After searching more of the cave, I found a level 25 and prepared to tame it. Before I could tame it, I had to deal with all the creatures around so they wouldn't get in the way. I had learned from my mistakes with the Aranio tame and I didn't want to repeat them. After they were dealt with, I landed in a safe spot and put on bug spray. Feeding the arthropleura was going to be a big challenge because you must be right next to its face to feed it. The main problem is it also aggroes on you when you get too close to its face. This meant I needed the perfect balance of being close enough to feed and too far away to get caught. I went in for my first feed and of course I messed it up. I had to run away as fast as I could and fly away on the winged menace. After the arthropleura calmed down, I went in for a second attempt.
There we go. I got it. Oh, thank goodness. We got him tamed up. Let's get him cryopotted. This is an annoying tame.
This time I got it, and luckily it tamed in 1 feed. When I landed at base, day 55 began. After successfully taming an arthropleura, I wanted to get all the cave tames out of the way. I also had leftover bug spray I wanted to use before it spoiled. The last tame in the caves was an onyx, and I knew they spawned in a cave near my base. After making it to the cave, I decided to take Lenny inside. This is because he would be able to help me clear out the creatures in the cave to make sure they didn't interfere. I'm glad I brought him in the cave because a bunch of creatures were waiting for me at the bottom of the ramp. After taking them out, I spotted a bat flying around. When I got closer, I also saw a second bat further in the cave. This is comforting because if I failed taming the first one, I would have a second chance. It was only level 20, which would make it tame after only feeding it twice. The only problem was the ceiling was extremely high and he was flying out of my reach. I didn't craft any grapples, so I had to wait until he flew low enough for me to feed him. I also couldn't be reckless when he flew low to the ground because if the bat aggroed on me, I would have to kill it. This is because I wouldn't be able to lose aggro by flying away like the other cave tames. It took forever for him to fly low enough, and I went through an entire bug spray before feeding it even once. After a long time, he flew low to the ground and I fed the bat without getting caught. After a while, watching the bat and dodging an arthropleura in the area, I fed it again. It tamed and I crowded the bat to end day 55. Now that I had tamed every cave creature, I could get back to the saddle progression. On day 56, I started hunting for a tapejara. I flew over the entirety of the south jungle. I flew over every spawn location and was not having any luck at all. I flew over every area they spawned in and I was not able to find one. I decided to give up and break the rules of the challenge. I didn't want to waste all my time being stuck on one tame and flying around aimlessly. I decided to move on to the next tame and hopefully I would encounter a Tapejara later in the 100 days. The next tame I needed was a Xiphactinus, and after grabbing my scuba gear I was ready to tame it. After a while searching, I found my first one and it was a level 100. It was completely by itself, so it was the perfect target. I started tranking it and using my Sarco speed to get arrows off when I could. The Xiphactinus was surprisingly fast and it was hard to outmaneuver it without taking damage. It got into a fight with some mantas. This was a big opportunity for me to pump it full of arrows while it was distracted. I got a bunch of progress on it during its fight with the mantas and it was getting close to knocking out. To continue knocking it out, I would shoot it then run onto land. This method of running then chasing was working perfectly. Then things went completely downhill. I missed a bunch of arrows and let it run too far. Because of this, another group of Xiphactinus joined him and started attacking me.
Oh no. There's a bunch of them now. This is not good. That's not what I wanted. Now there's a ton of them, a crap ton of them. Okay. I think I'll need to build a trap or something.
There was no way I'd be able to single him out anymore, which meant I failed the tame. I regrouped and decided to build a trap, which is what I should have done from the start. By the time I had everything crafted, day 56 ended. On day 57, I placed my new trap in the shallow water. It was a simple design and would hopefully work to get a Xiphactinus stuck. After finding the group of Xiphactinus again, I noticed a level 140. I decided to tame it since I would be starting from scratch on the level 100 anyway. I shot the level 140 hoping it would be the only one that aggroed on me, but the entire group started chasing me. I swam for my life, and after running into yet another group of Xiphactinus, I climbed out of the water to safety. When I got back into the water, by some miracle the 140 chased me and only 2 others in its pack followed it. I tried to trap them, but it was not going well at all. They were so fast my Sarco couldn't outmaneuver them and their bleed damage was killing me fast. I got the opportunity to kill one of them, which made my job a lot easier, only having to deal with 2. After force feeding my Sarco, I tried to trap them again, but they wouldn't go into the trap no matter what.
You have them following super close and then go down. Oh, I got the one I don't want in the trap. That is beautiful. Alright, we just need to get one dead here.
I needed to get the 140 completely by himself to even have a chance of trapping it, so I killed the level 100 that was with it. After the level 100 died, I tried trapping it, but I couldn't get it into the trap because my Sarco was too slow. I decided I was going to need to sacrifice myself to get this tame done. I placed a bed down on the beach and put away all my stuff into my Sarco. I was fully prepared to die, but it followed me into my trap and didn't grab me like I was expecting. I was able to close the door and I even survived.
How did I survive that? How did I survive that? That's ridiculous.
My strategy had worked perfectly and now I could trank the stuck Xiphactinus. I was able to knock it out and get it tamed. I named it Razorfang and decided it would be my new main water creature. I made it back to base on day 58 and I was glad to be out of the ocean. The next dino I needed was a Megalosaurus and I figured a nocturnal creature would spawn in the underworld. I flew to the flying entrance on the Winged Menace and flew all the way down into the underworld. With the new ARK Ascended graphics, this place looked amazing. I searched around the underworld and besides spotting a couple pterodons, I couldn't find anything. I realized that Megalosaurus didn't spawn in the underworld and I would have to make a trip to the center island. After I got there, I flew to the pond in the middle and I initially didn't see anything. After looking around some more, there was actually one sleeping right next to the lake and it was level 145.
That's a beaver. What are you thinking? Wait, no, this is one right here. Literally right here sleeping. Oh my gosh, perfect. 145 male. Okay.
It was in the middle of the day, so it was very slow and I could kite him around easily. I was able to trank the Megalo until he started running away from me and it was funny to see him run away at a snail's pace. This tame was going very smooth and the only trouble I had was an Argent attacking me. I destroyed him with my shotgun and continued the tame. He ran all the way to the lake and just stopped moving. Because of this, I was able to knock him out and get him tamed. After the tame was over, I still had plenty of trank arrows, so I started looking for a Daedon. I knew this tame was going to be very important to the challenge because of its healing ability. It would be a key tame to bring into the boss fight and would boost my chance of success. I started flying around the snow mountain and looking for Daedons. I was having no luck at all and I decided I would fly to the other mountain and hope I had better luck there. On day 59, I was flying towards the other snow mountain when something caught my eye. I noticed 2 Megatheriums on the ledge above the swamp. I spyglassed them and one of them was a 140 male. My last Megatherium I tamed was a high level female, which meant if I tamed this male, I could breed them.
I decided this was worth it since the Megatherium would be one of my strongest tames against the broodmother. I landed on the ledge above him and started shooting him with tranks. I thought this was the perfect spot to tame him, but he ran away and fell down into the swamp. I decided I needed to build a trap to tame him because if he ran even further into the swamp, it would be extremely difficult to tame him. He was stuck in a narrow gap at the base of the cliff. If I could craft 2 stone gates, it would likely be enough to trap him with minimal resources. After the gates were crafted, I placed them and they perfectly blocked his escape. After landing on a ledge, I was able to shoot him and not worry about him running away. The Megatherium couldn't reach me at all and started glitching out like crazy on the wall. After a while, I realized I didn't have enough arrows, so I had to craft some as fast as I could before his torpor went down. After getting back to the ledge, I was able to knock him out. Now that he was down, I started looking for prime meat. I saw a very high level Alpha Rex, and even though I had Lenny, I was too scared to fight it. Once I got my imprinted pyromane leveled up, I would probably be able to take down an Alpha Rex, but for the time being, I didn't want to risk it. I found some mammoths and killed them with Lenny to get prime. After bringing the prime back to the giant sloth, he tamed. I named him Sid the Sloth and put him into a cryopod for safe transportation. I hadn't been flying for long when day 60 began and I found a pack of Daedons. One of the Daedons was level 90, and since they were decently rare, it was good enough to be tamed. I got lazy and built a wood trap that would be big enough for the whole pack. After the trap was placed, I tried to lead them into my trap. My luck must be horrible when it comes to trapping tames because this did not go smoothly at all. There was a Sabertooth that teamed up with the Daedons, and of course it was the first one to fall into the trap. The one creature I didn't even want, and it easily got trapped. Then the lowest level out of all the Daedons went in, and the level 90 got stuck behind my ramps. The winged menace was taking a ton of damage, and the level 90 refused to go into the trap no matter what I did. At this point in the 100 days, I was completely fed up with the Dinos not being trapped easily, and I was losing my patience. This is so annoying. Go in the trap. Just like your friends did.
After a couple more tries, I was finally able to trap the level 90. Before I could knock out the Daedons, I needed to deal with the Saber that was also trapped. Luckily, it was right next to the door and I was able to shotgun it. Now that the Saber was dealt with, I started the tame. Trank arrows take about 4 seconds to fully deliver their torpor. With the amount of time it took to reload, I could shoot multiple Daedons and have a 4-second gap between shots. This meant I could trank 2 Daedons at once and prevent them from breaking out of the wood trap. After all the Daedons were knocked out, I went on a meat run with Lenny. I killed several mammoths with Lenny and even killed a baby parasaur that gave me a boatload of prime.
Dang, that baby had so much prime meat in it. Oh my gosh.
After getting back to my trap, all the Daedons tamed and I cryopoded the 2 I wanted. I didn't need the lower level male, so I decided to kill it. I was mid-flight when day 61 began and I stumbled upon another saddle tame. I had finally found a Tapejara and I could fulfill the taming requirement for it. I wasted no time at all flying back to base to grab rare flowers. When you eat a rare flower, every creature in the area will stop to attack you even if they're normally passive. Eating a rare flower would stop the Tapejara from running away from me and I would be able to easily bola it. When I got to the Tapejara, I immediately ate the rare flowers to make sure it didn't run away. After leading it up to a rock ledge, I managed to bola it. It went down in 2 trank arrows and I put meat into its inventory to tame it. The only downside to using the taming method I did is rare flowers can sometimes aggro a bunch of other creatures that you have to deal with. Luckily, the tame went very smooth and nothing else was in range. The Tapejara tamed and I was able to make up for breaking the rules. On my way home from the Tapejara tame, I noticed a yellow drop and decided to loot it.
Oh, no way. That's crazy. That's crazy. What a good drop.
This drop had very good loot. It had ramshackle flak boots, which had much more armor than normal and more durability. It also had a mastercraft pike that had nearly double the damage of my current pike. Finally, it also had an ascendant fur cap that would really come in handy in the snow cave. Even though I had my pyromane, the fur would guarantee I didn't die to the cold. It also had a very high armor stat, which would keep me protected in the cave. After getting back to base, I crafted a preserving bin and put all my perishable resources into it. After that was done, I threw out all my tames and started breeding my Megatheriums. While they were breeding, I went on a killing spree on Sunfire. He was extremely powerful even before any levels and was destroying wild dinos. With the imprint bonus, her damage was insane and nothing could scratch her. To finish leveling up, I killed an Alpha Raptor and went home. When I got back to base, the Megatherium baby was born. I claimed it only to find out it was another perfect baby. In the last couple of days, everything had been going perfect for me and I was over the moon. I pumped levels into Sunfire and she had much higher stats than Lenny. Because of this, it was time to let Lenny go into retirement and Sunfire would be my new taming partner.
That's a big improvement from Lenny. Sorry, Lenny. It's time for you to go into your retirement here. You served me well. But Sunfire is so much stronger.
After imprinting the Megatherium baby, day 61 ended. On day 62, it was time to tame a Basilosaurus and I was going to be prepared. I started the day by crafting a Zyphactinus saddle for Razorfang. I also grabbed the mutton I got from the drop since it would be useful for this tame. I then picked up the cryo fridge and moved it by the water. After deploying Razorfang and leveling him up, I was ready to go.
Weight's pretty good on him. We want a lot of melee and get some health going.
This tame only had one hurdle I would need to get over before it would be smooth sailing. I would have to kill the manta pack that surrounded the Basilo and not die while doing it. There were probably about 10 mantas that swim around the Basilo, and if I got stuck between them, I would most definitely die. I swam through a ton of ocean and was having no luck finding a Basilosaurus. Eventually I found one and it ended up being a level 100. I was preparing to tame it when I also saw a second Basilo, but it was only a level 20. I decided the level 100 was the perfect option and to tame it. I carefully hit one of the mantas and led them away from the Basilo. I bit the swarm of mantas when I could and swam away before they could do too much damage to me. I still did take a good amount of damage, but I was able to kill them all without getting stuck. Now that the mantas were all dead, I could passively feed the whale and tame it. The mutton I got from the drop did wonders in this tame and almost tamed it halfway with only one feeding. I continued to follow him around and had Razorfang follow me to protect me. At one point I got nervous the whale would die when he started to dive down close to a plesiosaur and anglerfish. These dinos would be an absolute pain to deal with if they aggroed, and I don't know what I would have done to save the whale. Luckily, the Basilo started swimming towards the surface and I was able to feed him a second time. Eventually, he got hungry for a third time and I was able to tame the Basilo.
Is this guy ready to eat anytime soon? Yep, he can eat again. Give me your mutton, buddy. Let's go. We got our Basilo. That was an easy tame too.
I named him Moby and put him into a cryopod. After he was tamed, I thought about taming an anglerfish since it was pretty close to the surface and wasn't that dangerous. I started shooting the anglerfish with trank arrows, but it swam super close to the plesiosaurs. I decided I didn't want to mess with them and it would be smarter to wait until Razorfang had more levels. On my way home, I got a drop and forgot I was paused on the recording. The drop had pretty good loot and I got a Mastercraft club which would make getting organic polymer much easier. I started day 63 by replenishing my narcotics supply. I was running extremely low on narcotics and I wanted to start crafting some before I completely ran out. I went on a meat run on Sunfire and killed another Alpha Raptor. I also noticed a bunch of beavers swimming around the pond, which happened to be the next saddle tame. Because of this, I kept my eye out for a high level. I was killing a Bronto when I spotted a level 100 beaver and decided I wanted to tame it. After I got back to base, all the meat I harvested spoiled and I just needed narco berries to craft more narcotics. I harvested narco berries on my stego and got the narcotics crafting. After the narcotics were made, it was time to tame the beaver. They were super slow on land, so it would be easiest to kite it with my character. I shot the beaver and let it down towards my gates where it would be safe. I was surprised at how low its torpor was and I knocked it out extremely fast.
Oh, he's running. I think he's low on torpor. Or he's high on torpor. Oh, I might have accidentally shot him an extra time. Alright, but we got him down.
After getting some medjo berries from the stego, the beaver tamed.
Oh shoot, I accidentally made a mistake. I was supposed to tame the Ceratosaurus first.
I accidentally skipped the Ceratosaurus and tamed a beaver in the wrong order. This is a big mistake, so I flew out of my base immediately to prepare for a Ceratosaurus. Earlier in the 100 days, I had found an Ascendant Stego saddle. This meant if I could tame a high level stego and purely pump HP on it, it would be the perfect tank. I searched all around my base and had no luck finding a high level stego. They were all very low levels and not worth taming, so I went to check out Blue Obelisk Island. When I got there, I found a 145 stego, but he was getting attacked by a ton of raptors. I tried to kill the raptors to help him, but failed horribly. Eventually, he killed them all by himself and was safe. I used my magnifying glass to look at his health and I realized he was too hurt to start tranking. After waiting for him to heal, I started knocking him out. I tried my best to shoot him in the head because it would do more torpor than anywhere else. I got into a routine of tranking him and running away when he charged me. He was constantly running very far away from me, so I was grateful that the area was safe. He finally went down, so I picked some bushes and tamed him. I named him Hank the Tank, then put him into a cryopod. After he was put away, I wanted to check the obelisk so I could take note of what artifacts I would need to summon the boss. I would have to start running caves very soon to make sure I was ready to fight the boss by day 100. On days 64 through 65, getting a Ceratosaurus was my only goal. When I got home, I bred my stegos and I was hopeful that I could get an imprinted baby with good health. While they were breeding, I looked up what I needed to make a hemoglobin cocktail. This item is essential for the Ceratosaurus tame, and it is used to make the Ceratosaurs drunk. When they bite a tame that has the cocktail effect, they become drunk and eventually can be passive fed. After harvesting some of my blood, my stego baby hatched and it did not have very good stats. I would have to try again and hopefully transfer the health stat on another baby. I had the blood packs I would need for hemoglobin, but I needed to hunt Ceratosaurus for their spikes. I went to the island that was right next to the lava biome and started massacring Ceratosaurus. I would check to make sure they were not a high level, and if they weren't, I killed them on Sunfire. This continued a couple times until I found a level 135 that I decided to leave alive. This was the highest level I had found by far and would be a powerful tame that I could bring into the boss fight. I continued killing more Ceratosaurus until I had enough spines to craft one hemoglobin cocktail. I was hoping it would craft more than one cocktail, but I was let down when this was not the case. This was extremely frustrating because of the meager amount of spines each Ceratosaurus dropped. I would have to hunt a ton more of them before I was even close to having enough cocktails. Before I went back to the island to kill more Ceratosaurus, I wanted to level up Hank. I had come to the conclusion that I didn't want to wait for an imprinted stego, so leveling up Hank was my best option. Also, if I pumped a ton of levels into health, I would have to wait for him to heal. Because of this, it made more sense to level him up now and let him heal while I was farming spikes. I killed a couple more things with Hank, then I spotted an Alpha Raptor. I damaged the Alpha Raptor a lot with Sunfire, then led it to my stego. I finished the job on the Alpha Raptor and got a ton of levels on Hank. I was able to get his health to 15k, which would be plenty to tank a Ceratosaurus. I realized I didn't even need to wait for Hank to heal because now I had a Daedon. I made a Daedon saddle and fully healed Hank. I could craft hemoglobin while I was on the island, so I decided to take everything else I needed for the tame with me. I killed a bunch more Ceratosaurus and I was able to get all the hemoglobin cocktails I needed for the tame. I found the 135 Ceratosaurus from earlier and decided he was in a good spot to tame. Before I could tame him, I needed to get some prime meat to feed him once he was fully drunk. I brought my crowd fridge and generator to the island so I could throw out Hank. After setting them up and waiting for the timer, I threw out Hank. I parked my pterodon in a safe spot and now I was ready to tame the Ceratosaurus. I consumed the hemoglobin cocktail and let the Ceratosaurus chew on Hank. He did no damage to me at all and I could tank his hits all day long. Having 15k health and 100 armor saddle was very OP. I got stuck in a corner and the Ceratosaurus chomped on Hank until he was fully drunk. He was totally wobbling around and looked like all of America after Thanksgiving dinner. I was able to feed him, but I had a problem. All the prime I had gotten was about to expire before the tame would be finished. I quickly got some more prime on Sunfire and tamed the Ceratosaurus.
There we go. We got our Ceratosaurus tamed up. There we go, the Ceratosaurus. Let's go.
I thought he looked like the Screaming Death from How to Train Your Dragon, so that's what I named him. On day 66, I could make a big progress step on the saddle list. Now that I had tamed a Ceratosaurus, I could tame an Argentavis. This flyer would be very helpful for farming heavy resources and picking up smaller creatures. I flew around the island spyglassing Argents. I found several high levels, but I wanted the best of the best, so I kept looking. After a while, I found a level 140 and decided that was high enough to tame. All of a sudden, it flew down and started attacking an Alpha Rex. I quickly landed the Winged Menace and got on Sunfire. I wanted to try to save the Argent if I could and kill the Alpha Rex. It was hard to attack the Rex and not hit the Argent. I fought the Rex for a while and eventually the Argent died. It was a big loss and I was pretty upset to lose such a high level Argent. I took out my rage on the Alpha Rex and I torched it until it died. Taking down the Alpha Rex meant Sunfire was extremely powerful and nothing but the bosses would even have a chance against me. I began spyglassing Argents again and by some miracle I found a 145. It was an even higher level than the bird I had lost and I was hyped. I decided to lead it to the mainland where it would be much safer to tame. There were just too many dangerous carnivores on that island and I didn't want to risk another bird dying. After making it to the mainland, I used the foolproof strategy of walking in a circle while tranking it. Ever since ARK Survival Evolved, if you walk in a tight circle, the Argent won't be able to hit you. I don't know how the devs have not fixed this by now, but it made tranking it easy. Eventually the bird started flying away, so I chased him on the Winged Menace. It was annoying that I couldn't shoot off the back of the pterodon and I had to land and shoot up at the bird. I missed a couple of times and I was losing progress on the tame. Finally, I was able to snipe the Argent and knock him out. I had a ton of leftover meat from the Alpha Rex, so I was able to tame the Argent. I named him Big Bird and I was ready to head home. Now that I had a very good flyer, my goal for day 67 was to go on several harvesting runs. Before I did that, I made a Ceratosaurus saddle and an Argent saddle. I then flew to a metal rich spot and harvested as much as I could. This was my biggest metal run by far the 100 days and the amount of metal Big Bird could hold was insane. I also restocked on crystal while I was on the mountain. After making it back to base and unloading all the metal, I needed wood to fuel the forge. With my new beaver, it was easier than ever to get wood. If I flew the beaver near trees, it would automatically hit them. This meant I didn't even need to craft a saddle and I didn't have to land at all. While my metal was smelting, I tested out my Ceratosaurus. This thing was a super fun tame to mess around with. It has a very powerful damaging effect, and combined with its charging damage, it was ripping through wild dinos. I also tested out its max speed and could barely even control the creature. With my harvesting chores out of the way, I could get back to taming. The next tame on the list was a Bronto, and day 68 was dedicated to taming one. As I was preparing to craft trank arrows, I spotted a level 145 Bronto out front of my base. I decided not to tame it though for several reasons. It would take a ton of trank arrows to knock it out, and this meant I would have to harvest more narcotics. Also, you can't take Brontos into the boss fight, so it was not worth it for me to tame a high level when other tames would be much more useful. After scouting a couple Brontos, I found one that I decided to tame. It was a level 50 and it was secluded from other Brontos. I landed on a ledge and shot it with a bunch of tranks. I thought I was high enough to not get hit, but it had immediately whacked me. I flew off the side into my base and almost died from fall damage.
Oh. Ouch. Uh-oh. Come on. Clutch it up. Oh. I survived. Okay. So he definitely can hit me from there.
When I got back on my pterodon, I thought the Bronto was stuck. But it was not, and it ran into my base. I thought it would be perfect that it was in my base, but it definitely was not. I thought he would stay peaceful with my dinos and not attack any of them. I was very wrong, and tragedy struck.
Oh. This is not good. I did not expect him to start hitting all my tames. No. Okay, alright. Take him down. Take him down. This is a fail. This take him down. Take him down. Go, boys. Go. No, this is a tragedy. Okay, that was bad. I didn't. Why would he start just hitting my random tames? What the heck? Oh, man. Okay.
I lost many of my tames, but none of them were super important to the challenge, so it wasn't a huge setback. It was still a huge fail, and I needed redemption. I was able to start tranking a level 15 Bronto, and because it had such low torpor, it knocked out before causing any more problems. The level 15 Bronto tamed, and I named him Littlefoot. When I got back to base, I surveyed the damage and let out a tear for my fallen tames. The worst part about the entire situation was I lost my beaver. My beaver was an actual important tame, and she died in the dumbest way possible. When the Bronto attacked, she was on neutral and tried to run over to help, but she got stuck on a refining forge and burned to death. It was a huge tragedy, and it was one of my biggest losses of the 100 days. On day 69, I wanted to tame a plesiosaur, and I knew just where to find them. Before I was ready to tame a plesiosaur, I needed to repair my scuba gear and craft some more arrows. With my Mastercraft club, it was easy to get all the polymer I needed to repair my scuba gear. I repaired my gear and crafted arrows, then I was ready for the tame. I went to the spot where I tamed the Basilosaurus and found the two plesiosaurs that were there. I needed to kill the lower level plesiosaur before I could tame the other one. I bit the low level and dodged the one that I wanted. Razorfang was much faster than the plesiosaurs, and it didn't take me long to kill the lower level. In ARK Survival Ascended, the plesiosaur has a height limit that it can't swim past. Because of this, my strategy for the tame was to shoot the plesiosaur and immediately after swim above its limit. If I could trank it and then swim out of its reach, it would never be able to hit me. I used this strategy for the entire tame, and I chased it when I needed to. I barely had any trouble because the plesiosaur was swimming so deep that no other creatures were messing with me.
Uh-oh. No, passive, 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 buddy. Just randomly decided he wanted beef again.
Before I knew it, Nessie the long-necked monster was unconscious and ready to tame. As he knocked out, I noticed a bunch of anglerfish in the area. Since the threat of the plesiosaur was gone, I could easily knock out an anglerfish. I didn't need any strategy for this tame and just shot it when I could. The anglerfish was extremely slow, so it was easy to not get overwhelmed. After it went down, I gave both the anglerfish and plesiosaur food to tame. They both tamed and I put them into cryopods. On my way home, I found another insane yellow drop. It had an improved flak helmet and a Parasaur platform saddle. The platform saddle would make my Parasaur very tanky and a good asset in the boss fight. I started day 70 by preparing for a giant bee tame. I had a raptor egg and I could use it to make simple kibble. With the kibble, I would be able to tame a queen bee in one feeding. I wanted to get this tame done for several reasons. It was an annoying tame and it was easy to forget about. Also, I would need giant bee honey very soon. It is an essential resource for making sweet veggie cakes, and I would need honey to tame a Leopleurodon. After my cooking pot was crafted, I grabbed some crops from my farm to make the kibble. The last ingredient I needed was cooked fish meat, so I grabbed some from Razorfang. After putting all the ingredients in the crop plot, I was able to craft one simple kibble. After grabbing my ghillie suit and bug spray, I was fully prepared for the tame. The last thing I needed to do before leaving was to make a tree sap collector. I needed sap to craft sweet veggie cakes, and I wanted to start harvesting some before it was too late. When I got to the redwoods, I placed the sap tap, and I didn't realize I could only place it extremely high in the tree. I didn't know how I was going to collect it, but that was a problem for another day. I began searching for a beehive, and I was having no luck at all. I flew past every tree, doing my best to check it from all sides. I also flew very close to several rocky cliff sides, and I could not find a single one. This search was by far the most ridiculous one of the 100 days, and I was getting bored fast. I flew over the entire redwood biome, and I could not find a single bee. I was getting ready to give up and leave when I spotted an Archaeopteryx. This was another tame I didn't have, and it was also a rare dino. It got stuck, and I was able to bullet it, then knock it out. Luckily, I had chitin on the winged menace, and I tamed it. I couldn't find a bee, but at least the redwoods trip wasn't a total waste. When I got back to base on day 71, I set my sights onto the next tame. I could finally tame an aloe, which would be another very powerful tame. If I could get a high level, it would be a huge asset in the boss fight, especially because of its bleed ability. After repairing my crossbow, I was ready to start looking for an aloe. I briefly flew over the jungle by my base, but I didn't spot any. I decided I would probably have better luck at the center island, so that's where I went. I lucked out the moment I got to the floating island, and I found a level 140 male. I was feeling very lazy, and I didn't want to build a trap. Because of this, when I saw a tall cliff platform that I could shoot it from, I took the opportunity. I killed the low level aloe with my shotgun and tried to trank the other one. I soon realized that the aloe was way too fast and sporadically moving to tame it without a trap. I landed super far away from the aloe, and I thought I was safe. I started gathering resources for the trap, and the aloe ambushed me. I was in the middle of crafting and was extremely slow.
Oh.
I barely managed to get on my pterodon, and I definitely had to check my pants after this encounter. The worst part about this all was he aggroed on an Anki that made him jump off the center island. This meant I would have to find a different aloe to tame. I crafted my trap and placed it down, then began searching for another aloe group. I eventually found another group and spyglassed them all. At first it looked like there were only low levels, but I spotted a 145 male in the group. If I could tame him, it would make up for losing the 140 and would be even better. Leading the aloe to the trap was an absolute pain because the 145 would not aggro on me no matter what. I took a ton of damage from getting bit and getting hit by their bleed effect. I made steady progress and moved the entire aloe group closer to my trap.
Come on. Stupid guys. Can't be that hard to lead. Come here. Yeah. Yes, you. Okay. We got him over here separated from his pack. Let's see. I think this is our trap area. Oh yeah, right there. Come here. Perfect. He's in the trap. 145 trapped.
By some miracle, I was able to separate the 145 and easily lead him to my trap. I was getting ready to tame him when his whole pack showed up, and I had to lead them off the cliff. Now that he was completely by himself and trapped, I was able to trank him until he knocked out. I killed an Argent for Prime Mutant Sunfire, and the aloe tamed. I named him Alberto and flew home. When I got back to base, I wanted to build a second feeding trough. With the increasing amount of tames I've gotten, I needed to make sure they were all fed. It was also a good opportunity to go on a meat run that would help level up my Argentavis. I also bred the Daedons, and unfortunately the baby did not have the good food stat. This stat is the only important stat for Daedons because that's what determines how much they can heal. I took out the baby Daedon and refocused on my goal for days 72 through 73. I was now high enough in the saddle progression to tame a Therizinosaurus. The Tickle Chicken is one of my favorite dinos in ARK, and it would be one of the most powerful tames that I could bring into the boss fight. Its damage is absolutely ridiculous, and if I could get an imprinted baby, it would seriously carry me in the boss fight. I needed to build a trap for the tame, so I used my Argentavis and Dodicarus to get a ton of stone. I also got all the wood I would need to craft the trap from beaver dams by the lake. After getting the resources I needed, I went back to base. I crafted a bunch more arrows and narcotics to prepare for the tame. Dinos take a very long time to tame on mejoberries, and I would waste a lot of narcotics. Luckily, I had crops that I could use instead, so I went to grab some. While I was down by the farm, I got fed up collecting poop. Because of this, I decided to tame a Phiomia that would help me maintain my crops. I was extremely excited for the Therizino tame, and I started hunting for them. The first area I checked out didn't have a Theri, but it had a level 90 Quetzal. I made a note of this Quetzal's location, and hopefully it would still be in the area when I could tame one. After some more flying, I found my first Theri, and it was a horrible level. I made sure to kill it so other Therizinos could spawn and moved on. While looking for more Theris, I found a Gigantoraptor, and she had a nest. The Gigantoraptor was the next tame that I would be able to get, and I was grateful to find one in an easy taming location. I found another Theri, but it was another low level and it wasn't worth taming. After flying further down the beach, the third time was the charm and I found a 140. I landed down the beach from it and built my trap. On my first attempt to trap the Therizino, she de-aggroed at the last second. Then an Ichthyornis started stealing all of my stuff and attacking me. In this moment, my hatred for this stupid bird reached an all-time high and I taught it a lesson. I went for another attempt at trapping the Theri, and this time I was successful. With the Argent's large health pool, I could tank hits no problem and I could take my time trapping it. Now that the Therizino was trapped, it was extremely easy to knock out. Using my crops, I was able to get it tamed and I picked up my trap to end these days. On day 74, my goal was to find a male Therizinosaurus to breed with the 140 I just tamed. A powerful Therizino would be essential to successfully beating the boss, which meant I needed an imprinted one. I could not believe my luck when I spotted a 140 male. This was the perfect breeding partner for my 140 female, and I didn't even have to search very long to find him. I landed and tried to set up my trap. The only issue was the terrain was very sloped and the foundations got messed up. I was about to pick up my foundations when the situation got even crazier.
What? That's a different one. There's a different 145. Are you kidding me? That's ridiculous.
There was a 145 male and a 140 male right next to each other. I could not ask for better luck and I was genuinely freaking out. Once I got over the fact that I had just found a super high level Therizino, I needed to figure out how to get it tamed. My foundations were still placed and the Therizinos were right on top of them. I wouldn't be able to pick them up without getting mauled, and to make things worse, a pack of raptors also started attacking me. I was able to kill the raptors and the Therizino wandered far enough away for me to pick up the foundations. I started to replace the trap and an alpha raptor came out of the forest. This was very bad, and if I couldn't kill the alpha raptor, it could kill the 145 Theri and ruin my tame. Luckily, I managed to get its aggro and killed it. I also got 2 boosted hatchets from the raptor, which was a great bonus. Now that I was safe, I was able to build the entire trap. I was able to track down the 145 in the forest and got his attention. He chased me through the forest and got trapped on the first try. Now that he was trapped, I was able to trank him with no difficulties. He knocked out, and after putting rock carrots in his inventory, he tamed. I named him Scissorhands, and now I had a high level Therizino breeding pair. When I made it home, I threw out both tickle chickens and started breeding them. While I was waiting for them to breed, I harvested a bunch of berries. I then made them into a bunch of narcotics, and by the time I was done, the baby was ready to be hatched. My insane luck continued when the baby hatched and had transferred the best stats from the parents. After he was imprinted, he would be a beast of a tame and could possibly even rival Sunfire. I made a saddle for him to wear when he was fully grown up and decided to name him Shish Kebab. I think the name is pretty self-explanatory, so I won't go into further detail. To end day 74, I fully imprinted on Shish Kebab. Now that the Therizino tame was over, I could dedicate days 75 through 76 to taming a Gigantoraptor. I grabbed my ghillie suit and I was ready to tame one. When I got to the Gigantoraptor, I placed down my trap and cleared the area of all the dangerous creatures nearby. My entire plan was to trap the mom and to tame the baby while it was trapped. Little did I know this plan would not work in the slightest. I got the attention of the Gigantoraptor and let it into my trap, stuck into the Gigantoraptor nest, and was very confused why the baby wasn't doing its animation. It was just wandering around the nest aimlessly and I didn't know why it wasn't working. I eventually realized that the mother likely couldn't be trapped and that was causing the problem. There was no other explanation, so I carefully picked up the trap and made sure not to aggro the Gigantoraptor. I flew to my base and my Oviraptor came in clutch with the amount of Packy Rhino eggs it had stored in its inventory. After grabbing all the eggs, I was ready to start the tame for real. On my way back to the Gigantoraptor, I also got a drop that had a Dodicarus saddle which would come in handy later. When I got to the nest, the Gigantoraptor was distracted killing a Dimorphodon, so I thought now was the perfect time to jump in the nest. I placed a Pachyrhino egg down and ran to the nest. I must have placed the egg too far away because it attacked me the moment I got into the nest. I was able to escape to my bird and fly away.
How long was he eating that egg for? Like 2 seconds?
On my next attempt, I placed several eggs close to the nest and snuck inside. I made another rookie mistake and I didn't wait for the mom to start eating an egg before climbing in the nest. Because of this, she aggroed on me and I had to fly away again.
Please don't see me. Oh yeah. Get out of here. I hate this tame already. Why doesn't he go after the eggs at all?
I went in for yet another attempt and I placed down more Pachyrhino eggs. This time I watched the mom start chomping on an egg before going to the nest. I got into the nest and the baby interacted with me. I failed epically because I didn't react fast enough to get taming progress. I then had to run away from the angry mom for a third time. The next time I was determined to succeed and I placed many eggs around the nest to guarantee success. I snuck into the nest and spun around with the baby. It tamed over halfway and now I was in the zone. I knew what I had to do to get this tame done and I wasn't going to mess it up. I threw down a bunch more eggs and I snuck in the nest again. I was able to spin for a second time and get the baby tamed. Now that the baby was tamed, I had to quickly get on Sunfire and kill the mom before she could attack me.
Okay. Come on, get this out of my... I gotta kill him before he kills the baby. There we go. And he's down. Yes, Gigantoraptor tamed up. That was a tough tame. For sure a tough tame.
When I got home, I made a saddle for the Gigantoraptor and waited until I could imprint on it. It wanted jerky, and because I had a Pyromane, this was no problem at all. After my Gigantoraptor was grown up, it was time to test it out. I was amazed at how fast this dino was, and it packed a serious punch on wild dinos. I realized the Gigantoraptor is literally just a better terror bird. To finish these days, I got a pretty good yellow drop that had some good loot. On days 77 through 78, my goal was to tame a breeding pair of Spinos. After crafting some trank arrows, I was ready to start looking. It didn't take me long at all to find my first Spino. It was only a level 50, but it would be an easy tame. Also, since Spinos are generally pretty rare, I didn't want to risk killing it. If I could find a high level female Spino later, he would definitely be worth taming. I cleared the area on the beach with Big Bird and I placed my trap. I was very worried he would be too large to fit in the trap, but I decided to attempt to trap him anyway and I could expand the trap later if he didn't fit. I was about to craft ramps for the trap when I got distracted by compies. This is one of the few shoulder dinos I hadn't tamed yet and I couldn't refuse this golden opportunity. I downed one and I tried to use cooked prime to tame it, but it wasn't a valid food source. I then killed a fish and tried to use fish meat to tame it as well. This didn't work and I realized I would need raw prime meat. I found some Brontos and shredded them with Sunfire. Now that I had prime meat, I would be able to tame a compy. I landed where the compy pack was and I was able to knock out and tame one of the compies. With that distraction over with, I refocused on the Spino tame. I harvested a bunch of wood and crafted ramps for the trap. After they were placed, I was ready to attempt to trap the Spino. I got his attention and he followed me close to the trap. He was easy to lead, but he got distracted by literally everything. If there was a wild dino he could hit, he went for it. And this made trapping him very annoying.
Okay, can you stop killing everything in sight and follow me?
Eventually I got him to follow me into the trap and he fell in. His front two legs were literally on top of the walls and I thought he was going to jump out. To my surprise, he couldn't move and was fully trapped. Even though my trap was scuffed, I was able to knock out the Spino with no issues. I also had extra prime meat from the compy tame, so I didn't even need to go on a meat run. After a while, the Spino tamed and I put him into a cryopod. I went searching for another Spino and literally the next one I found was a 140 female. This was the perfect Spino that I could have found. It was a much higher level than the Spino I had just tamed and it was the opposite gender. This meant I would be able to get a strong imprinted Spino to bring into the boss fight with me. The boss arena also has a lot of water, so the Spino's water buff would be genuinely OP. I placed down the entire trap on a safe spot on the beach. Once it was all set up, I got her aggro and flew towards the trap. Just like the other Spino, she got distracted and killed a monkey, which messed up my first attempt to trap her. On my second attempt, she was glitching out hard and was biting the ramp instead of chasing me.
Stop biting the ramp and just come here.
Okay. I think that Spino's stuck. Okay, yeah, Spino's stuck. After hitting her, she refocused and ran into the trap. I cleared the area to make sure nothing would hit the Spino once she was knocked out. This tame again felt very sketchy, seeing her 2 legs on top of the trap walls, but she wasn't able to move at all. I got her knocked out and perfectly tamed. To end these days, I uncrowded all my new tames and built a Spino saddle for my future imprinted baby. Now that my Spino taming journey was complete, I went back to the redwoods to look for a bee. My only goal for day 79 was to get a queen bee tamed and start producing honey. I needed giant bee honey for sweet veggie cakes and for the Leopleurodon tame. When I got to the redwoods, I again flew through the entire forest. While I flew, I was looking at every tree and could not find a single beehive. I looked it up, and this is a common glitch in single player ARK games that bees will not spawn. I did my absolute best to find a hive, and I simply could not do it. Because of this, I decided I needed to spawn in a bee. It was also essential to get a bee because several dinos require bee honey to tame them. If I didn't cheat it in, I would miss out on a bunch of other tames. I tried to spawn it in wild, and even that command was not working at all. Because of this, I had to go a step further and spawn in a tamed queen bee. This felt horrible for me because it was the worst possible outcome and really felt like I wasn't fulfilling the challenge. Either way, I hope you guys can see why I had to do this and that I had no other option. After getting the bee, I threw away all the resources I had prepared to use on the tame just to make it a little bit more fair, and I moved on. After making it back to base, I bred the Spinos. Luckily, my base was the perfect temperature to hatch their egg and I didn't have to move it. The baby hatched, and even though it was a low overall level, it had the strongest stats. I named the Spino Sea King and imprinted on her. Once Sea King grew up, she would be one of my strongest dinos in the boss fight. The next tame I needed was a Megalania. I thought they spawned on the lava island, so I started heading in that direction. I also got a yellow drop on the way which had slightly improved flak leggings in them. When I got to the lava island, I started scouting for Megalania, and I was also scoping out Rexes. I couldn't tame a Rex right now, but if I could find a high level Rex, I could tame it later. I continued scouting and there was no signs of any giant lizards. I also kept scouting Rexes, and I eventually found a 140. Once I was able to tame a Rex, he would be my main target. I realized Megalania don't spawn on the lava island, so I flew to the jungle cave entrance close to my base. I landed my pterodon and got a cave drop, but it didn't have anything of value. I ran into the cave on Sunfire, and after killing some spiders, I spotted a Megalania on the wall. After shooting it, there was somehow another one meshed into the wall that also started chasing me. I had to be very careful during this tame that my character didn't get bit or I would get mega rabies. Mega rabies last for a long time, and if I contracted it more than once, I would probably die. Because of this, I stayed on the back of Sunfire and made sure to run away before they could bite me. I didn't know if I could contract mega rabies while riding a creature, but I didn't want to find out. I got the Megalania to knock out, and I fed it raw meat until it tamed. With a successful tame, I ran out of the cave. I started day 80 by collecting giant bee honey and stimulant. I wanted to craft sweet veggie cakes and to tame a snail in the swamp. I ran to my cooking pot, and after grabbing some vegetables, I was able to make one sweet veggie cake. Even though I could only make one sweet veggie cake, I was hopeful it would still be enough to tame a low level snail. I flew to the swamp on the winged menace and began looking for snails. I had no luck at first and wasn't able to find a single snail. Then I landed on an island and spotted my first one. It was a level 45, which was a low level, but I still wasn't sure if I could tame it with one cake. Luckily, I spotted a level 15 snail, which is the lowest level I could have possibly found. I put the cake in my hotbar because I thought it was a passive tame and ran up to it. I realized I needed to knock it out, so I shot it with a trank arrow. The snail ate the veggie cake and tamed, which was a huge relief for me. At this point, I still had plenty of day 80 left, and I wanted to get more swamp tames out of the way. I started flying around the swamp and looking for a Dimetrodon to tame. While looking for the Dimetrodon, I stumbled upon a Dinosuchus. The update for them had come out and they were now in my game. The timing of this update could not have been any better because I was only a few tames away from it.
Okay, so we're gonna have to tame a Rex first, I think. And then we're going to be able to tame up that guy. But that's sick. At least we know they're spawning here.
Once I tamed a Rex, I would be able to come back to the swamp and tame one of those giant crocs. After that interesting find, I kept looking for a Dimetrodon. I eventually found one and started the simple knockout tame. The Dimetrodon's health was very low and he got bloody fast. I was worried my improved crossbow was doing too much damage and I was going to kill it. Luckily, he knocked out and I had nothing to worry about. The area was pretty safe and I only had to deal with killing a Sarco before it tamed. The 100 days is getting closer to completion and this means I had to start running caves. I needed to collect artifacts to summon the boss and I was running out of time. Because of this, I decided to dedicate day 81 to getting my first artifact. With Sunfire, I thought the cave would be a breeze, but I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I had never completed the caves on the center map, so I was completely in new territory. When I made it into the cave, there were two directions I could go. I decided to go to the left, and of course this was the wrong way to go. It led me to a sheer drop, and I did not want to jump down. There was no way for me to know if I could get back up, and I didn't want to risk it. While I was scoping the cave below, I wasn't paying attention, and a bat gave me mega rabies. I was able to kill it, but in the future I'd have to be much more careful. I doubled back and went the correct direction of the cave. I was very nervous about swimming across the water. This water seemed like the perfect spot for there to be electric eels which would dismount me off a sunfire. Luckily, when I checked underneath the water, it was safe and there was nothing dangerous. I ran past all the creatures in the cave and made it up the ramp. I then noticed another group of bats and ran past them as fast as possible to make sure I didn't get mega rabies. I was now extremely deep in the cave and there was no more hostile creatures. Even though there were no more creatures, the challenge I now faced was much worse. The cave had a giant jumping puzzle over a pool of lava. I did have Sunfire to bail me out if I did fall, but I was still very nervous. These jumps were extremely sketchy and my heart was pounding in my chest. I had several moments where I made the jump by millimeters. Okay, keep on going. Oh, there's a drop over there. That's sick. I'm gonna make this jump. Oh, I barely made that. That was so close. I made it through most of the jumping puzzle and I made it to a cave drop. This drop was game changing because it had a very strong long neck rifle in it. This would make it way easier to knock out difficult tames like the Giga. I honestly surprised myself in this cave with how well I was doing. I had some very close calls, but I hadn't fallen at all and I was almost through the entire parkour. Okay, made it. Looks like we can probably jump on this side piece here. Jump again. Dude. You kidding me, ARK devs? Expect me to make this? Okay. I barely made the final few jumps and I was able to retrieve the artifact of the pack. I now had 1 out of the 6 required artifacts to summon the boss. On days 82 through 83, it was finally time to tame a Rex. This dino is the pinnacle of strength in ARK's boss fights and it would be of the utmost importance to get a high level breeding pair. Now that I had a very good long neck rifle, I wanted to make trank darts for the Rex tame. I gathered a bunch of flint for spark powder which would allow me to make gunpowder. After making simple rifle ammo and narcotics, I was able to craft a good amount of trank darts. It might not be enough to fully knock out a high level Rex, but it would greatly reduce the amount of time I would have to trank one for. I flew to the lava island and I was hopeful the male Rex I found earlier was still there. I was absolutely pumped to find the Rex in the same spot and got ready to tame him. I flew down the hill from him to make sure I was out of his range and placed my trap. Now that I had my trap placed, it would be simple to lead him into it. I led him down the hill and he fell into my trap on the first attempt. No matter how brutal it sounds, let's kill his children for their meat. You did it. You're a bad parent, buddy. I equipped my new long neck rifle and started pumping him with darts. It didn't take me long at all to knock him out and he had a rough fall. Should be going down here any second. Ooh, he did not go down gracefully at all. I still had plenty of prime meat from his children and after feeding it to him, he tamed. I named him Big Papa and began searching for a high level female. I started scouting for female Rexes and I found a 135 on the same lava island. I only saw it for a few seconds before it died to pyromanes. This was an unfortunate loss, but there was nothing I could have done to prevent it. I decided to fly back to my base and look for Rexes around the jungle area instead. On my way home, I found something even more rare than a 140 Rex. I was lucky enough to find a Giga before I actually had to tame one, which would save me the trouble of searching for one. I also got a yellow drop that had a ramshackle scuba tank that would come in clutch for taming the apex predators of the ocean. When I got there, I spotted a couple high level Rexes, but none were high enough for me to actually tame. I kept searching and I found a group of 3 Rexes. In this group, there was a 140 female, which was the perfect match for the Rex I just tamed. I placed down my trap and attacked the Rex to get its attention. This did not go smooth compared to trapping my other Rex. It was aggroing on literally everything but me and would not focus on following me for more than 3 seconds. What is going on? Aggro on me, you dumb Rex. Oh my gosh. What is it doing? Come here, you stupid thing. There we go. After a hard-fought battle, I was able to lead her to my trap. The first attempt, she slid out the side and I failed to trap her. The second try, I made sure to lead her to the center of my trap and she got stuck. Now that she was trapped, it was a simple knockout tame. In the middle of knocking her out, I went to check her torpor and got attacked by a 135 Therizino. I was barely able to get onto my bird without getting hit, and I was able to take it down. That situation could have gone a lot worse if I hadn't been able to react as fast as I did. I finished knocking her out and got her tamed. When I got back to base, I threw out both Rexes and started breeding them right away. I wanted to get an imprinted Rex as soon as possible so it would have time to get passive levels before the boss fight. While the Rexes were breeding, I also crafted a saddle for the baby. They laid the fertilized egg, and it was the perfect temperature in my base to hatch it. My luck with breeding in these 100 days has genuinely been ridiculous so far. This luck continued when the baby hatched with the best health and melee. This was unbelievably lucky. Out of all the dinos I had bred, nearly all the babies had the exact stats that I wanted. I imprinted on the baby Rex, and day 83 ended. On day 84, it was time to retrieve another artifact. The cave I had in mind was the lava pearl cave that has the artifact of the hunter. To make sure I was prepared, I made some grappling hooks, then flew to the cave. I landed above the cave entrance and killed a pyromane nearby to make sure the winged menace would be safe. I chose to go down the right side of the cave, and I was hoping it was the right direction. The passageways were super narrow, which sketched me out, but at the end of the day, nothing in the cave could hurt me at all. Sunfire demolished any tame that got in our way, and it was easy to clear the cave. Once I was safe, I noticed a bunch of pearls on the ground and took the opportunity to get some. After getting the pearls, I was confused why the artifact wasn't spawning. I was in the spot that it should be at, and it wasn't there. This is another glitch that can happen in single player, and I decided to spawn in the artifact. This is necessary for me to summon the boss, and it doesn't take away from the challenge because I made it to the spot where the artifact should have been. After getting the artifact of the hunter, I now had 2 out of the 6 artifacts that I needed. I decided to run the other side of the cave and see if I could find another cave drop. After getting such a strong long neck rifle from the cave drop, I wanted to see what other good loot I could find. Again, I got extremely lucky when I saw another cave drop, and I crossed my fingers before opening it. It had a very good aloe saddle and another piece of ascendant fur armor. This was a very good drop, and it made searching the other side of the cave worth my time. On the way home from the cave, I looted a yellow drop and got an improved baryonyx saddle. Maybe we'll take our baryonyx into the boss fight with us now that he's got a better saddle. And for his stunning, I think maybe we'll do that. On days 85 through 86, it was time for another swamp tame. Now I could tame a Dinosaurs, and I was looking forward to it. This tame is very strong, and I was eager to see what it could do in the boss fight. Its stats are even higher than a Rex, and it does a massive amount of damage. After grabbing my ghillie suit, I was ready for this tame. I flew to the swamp and began scouting. I found a level 100, then a level 15, but they were both far too low level for me to tame. The third time was the charm, and I found a 140 female. I landed the winged menace on a tall rock where she would be safe. I then jumped down from the rock on Sunfire and attacked the level 15 Dinosaurs. I knew it would give me prime meat, and I didn't want to have to deal with dodging 2 crocs at the same time. I crept up to the giant croc and waited for her to open her mouth. Once she did, I ran up and threw a piece of prime meat in. I heard her jaws snap, and I wasn't expecting it to be so loud. Okay, let's run. Run. I said run. I thought she had aggroed on me, and I frantically tried to run away. I got away and realized that I was safe and had nothing to worry about. This tame was shaping up to be an easy one, but I had one problem. I couldn't figure out how to turn off the pyromane's meat cooking feature. This meant all my prime meat had been cooked, and I had to quickly get more before I lost taming percentage. The tame got sketchy when a bunch of titanoboas made the giant croc go crazy. She started attacking the titanoboas, and in turn came very close to my pyromane. I bolted away before she could chomp down on me. Luckily, she calmed down, and I was able to continue the tame. The rest of the tame was smooth sailing, and I was able to passive feed her until she tamed. I named her Bigger Killer Croc and put her into a cryopod. That tame was really not that difficult, and I wanted to get a male, so I started searching for one. I scoped a bunch more Dinosaurs, but I wasn't having luck finding a high level male. I got distracted by a purple drop in the swamp and decided to risk my life to get it. It turns out the drop was worth risking my life for, and I got a good Carno saddle for Cassidy. Because of this good saddle, it would be worth bringing my Carno into the boss fight as one of my 20 tames. After searching some more, I found a very strong male. He was level 145, which made him the perfect candidate. Before I started the tame, I massacred some mammoths for prime and started the tame. The tame was going very smooth until a baryonyx came out of the trees. I was worried he would be a problem, but the Dinosaurs made quick work work of him. The game glitched and the baryonyx went flying into the air. I've never seen anything like this before and I was trying not to die laughing. The rest of the tame went very well and I got a perfect tame. When I got back home, I went on a quick hide run on Sunfire. After I made it back to base, I was able to craft the Dinosaur's saddle. I then put my new Cardinal saddle on Cassidy and pumped a bunch of levels into her. I then bred the Dinosaurs and I was hopeful to get another strong baby. I had to bring their egg to the river for it to hatch because my base was too warm. Unfortunately, when the baby hatched, it had the good melee but it didn't have the good health. I killed the baby and I would have to try breeding the crocs again later. Before these days were over, I needed to start leveling up my tames for the boss fight. It wouldn't matter how strong their base stats are if they haven't been leveled at all. Because of this, I started leveling Shish Kebab. It turns out I gave him the right name because he shredded wild dinos like no other and was leveling up fast. I was also able to find an Alpha Raptor to test my strength on and he did not disappoint.
We want a lot of health on him, 15k, and then we'll just pump straight damage.
On day 87, it was time to run another cave and get my third artifact. I also wanted to pair this adventure with taming a dung beetle. To prepare for this tame, I gave my Phiomia some very strong laxatives. After he pooped his brains out, I was ready for my adventure. I flew to the island and on my way I got another yellow drop. The drop had an improved Sarco saddle which was a clutch find. I was planning on taking my Sarco to tame a mosasaur and a better saddle would make things much easier. I stopped at the cave of the hunter and I ran back to the room where I had seen a dung beetle. After clearing out the bad creatures, I was able to spot a dung beetle. I passively fed it poop and got it tamed up. On my way to the real lava cave, I looted another drop that had a ton of cementing paste. This paste would help me craft metal gates for the final apex tames. When I got to the lava cave, I got on Sunfire and took a giant leap into the cave. This cave was not particularly dangerous, but it was an absolute maze. There were so many paths to take and I had no idea where I was going. I did my best to run past hostile creatures and progress further down the cave. With the heavy brush and portions of the cave, everything looked the same and I often found myself running in circles. I eventually spotted an artifact that was hidden in the bushes. It was the artifact of the strong and of course it was the one artifact in this cave I didn't need. I doubled back in the cave and ran down a different path. I noticed a bunch of ruins and I knew I was getting close to the artifact. I ran through all of the ruins and even made a sketchy jump over a giant pool of lava. The path led me to the artifact and I was able to reach the halfway mark on being able to summon the boss.
There we go. Finally, here's the artifact. Artifact of the massive. Done.
On day 88, it was time for one of my favorite solo tames of all time. I can now tame a Quetzal, which is one of the most challenging solo tames but also the most fun. I crafted some parachutes and more grapples to prepare for this tame. I had spotted a Quetzal earlier in the 100 days, so I flew to where I last saw it. I found it and I got my strategy together for this tame. For this tame, I was going to be swinging through the air like a madman. My plan was to grapple myself to the bottom of my Argent and then whistle attack my target on the Quetz. This would make my Argent fly towards the Quetz and would allow me to trank it while still flying. The only catch is I would have to whistle passive before my Argent actually attacks so he wouldn't kill the Quetz. I got set up for this plan and whistled Big Bird to attack. This method was working out perfectly and I was able to hit a bunch of trank arrows. Besides getting the whiplash of a lifetime, this tame was surprisingly easy. Nothing could attack me in the sky and my Argent hadn't been able to hit the Quetz even once. The Quetzal was getting closer to knocking out when Big Bird almost sabotaged the tame. He nosedived towards a rock for no reason and slammed me on the ground.
What are you doing, bird? You dumb bird. Fly after the Quetzal.
Luckily, the drop wasn't far enough to kill me, but it could have been bad. I was in the home stretch of the taming process when the Quetzal started erratically turning. This made my Argent fly all over the place. I was getting dragged through trees and came very close to the ground several times. I was hitting the craziest snipes of my life while having to manage all of the whistle commands. At the end of the tame, the Quetzal got glitched out flying in a circle. This gave me the perfect opportunity to trank it as much as possible and it went down. I quickly reeled in my grappling hook and flew down to protect the Quetzal. Oftentimes when a Quetzal gets knocked out, it dies because everything on the ground will attack it. Luckily, the area it knocked out in was safe and I was able to leave it to get prime meat. I killed a Dipple with my Argent and got the Quetzal tamed. I was preparing to leave when I spotted a small monkey in the bushes. I had not tamed a Mesopithecus yet in the challenge and now was a perfect opportunity. I got one feed on the little monkey, but I accidentally scared it and it ran away. The monkey eventually calmed down and I tamed it. I named the monkey Little Dude and I was ready to go home. This tame could not have gone any better and I was in disbelief that I pulled it off. Now that I had tamed a Quetzal, I could tame one of Ark's most ferocious water creatures. I could now tame a mosasaur, which meant day 89 would be another water adventure. To prepare for this tame, I started gathering stone. I had a trap designed specifically for the mosasaur that would make this tame go very smooth. After I gathered the stone I needed, I crafted a bunch of sloped stone pieces. After they were made, I was ready to hunt for a mosasaur. On my way to the mosasaur, I realized that one of the artifacts I needed spawned deep in the ocean. After getting to its coordinates, I dove down and easily retrieved it. The artifact of the brute was not difficult to obtain in the slightest, but I was glad to have it out of the way. When I was taming a Dunkleosteus, I had seen a mosasaur in the area. Because of this, I thought I would try out my luck in this area first. At first, I only spotted an alpha mosasaur, but I swam deeper and found a level 50 mosasaur. Even though it was a low level, I decided it would be worth taming for a couple reasons. It was the only one in the area, and there was no point in looking for a higher level because water creatures are irrelevant to the boss fight. I found a flat area nearby the mosasaur and started building my trap. This trap is a V-shaped design that uses minimal resources but traps it. The idea is that the stone slope roofs connect to a point and the mosasaur is too big to swim between them. Once the mosasaur is stuck swimming in the gap, all you need to do is place the behemoth gate onto the gateway. Now that the trap was built, it was time to start the risky process of trapping the mosasaur. My Starko did have a good amount of health, but if things went badly, it was very possible for him to die. Once I got to my trap, I led the mosasaur into it. Just like planned, it got stuck in the V-shaped gap and couldn't move. I was too far away to place the gate, and as I swam closer to the gateway, the mosasaur escaped. On my second attempt, I wasn't going to make the same mistake. I swam directly towards the mosa's mouth. This meant I was going to take some damage, but it would be entirely worth it to guarantee the mosa got trapped. I was able to place the gate, and I swam around the trap to make sure the mosasaur was actually trapped. The mosasaur could not move at all, and now it was a simple knockout tame. I knocked it out, and unfortunately the best food I had for it was raw fish meat. With this low quality food, the tame took forever and I had to use narcotics to keep it down. The mosasaur tamed and day 89 came to a close. On day 90, I wanted to get the final artifacts I would need for the boss fight so I could fully focus on the taming challenge. The final cave is the center snow cave, which in my opinion is the most dangerous cave. To prepare for this cave, I grabbed my ascendant fur pieces, which would guarantee I wouldn't get cold. I also made sure to have a couple grappling hooks just in case I needed it. Finally, I grabbed my scuba tank and flippers because there's an underwater part of the cave. When I got to the ice cave, I parked the winged menace in a safe spot and ran into the cave with Sunfire. The first section of the cave was safe and it led me to my first swim. I put on my scuba and picked one of the paths. After reaching the surface, I quickly jumped on Sunfire and started clearing the hostile creatures nearby. I ran further into the cave and took the elevated path to avoid a bunch of yetis. When I came around the bend, I found another cave drop. I walked towards it and I was hoping for something that would help me with the challenge. I got my wish when there was an ascendant long neck rifle in the drop. I already had a boosted long neck rifle, but this one was even better and would help me knock out a Giga. I kept moving further into the cave and I made it to the first artifact spot. For some reason, this artifact was not spawning in. I double checked to make sure I was in the right spot and ultimately decided to cheat in the artifact. There was no reason to hold myself back because of a glitch and I was in the spot that the artifact should have spawned. Now that I had the artifact from one side of the cave, it was time to clear the other side. After swimming through the cave, I made it to the other side. I was able to get on my pyromane and I got swarmed by every creature in the area. I was lucky that Sunfire is such a beast of a tame and she had no problems massacring everything. After running down the path, I spotted the artifact. I'm not sure why one artifact in the cave is spawning and the other one is not, but I wasn't complaining. I was able to grab the final artifact I needed, which meant I could now summon the boss. I made it out of the cave with no problems and I started my journey home. While I was flying home, I noticed a very dark spot on the ground in the snow. It looked like a Purlovia mound, which was one of the few tames I had not found yet. I landed next to it and sure enough, the Purlovia jumped out of the ground and attacked me.
Oh, yep, it is. Okay, you can't bully him. Just try to trank him out. Hopefully our pterodon can tank a little bit.
The winged menace was able to tank the Purlovia and I got it knocked out. I got it tamed and got even closer to my goal of taming every creature on the map. I now had all the artifacts necessary to summon the boss and I could fully focus on the taming challenge. I only had a few tames left and the challenge was winding down to its final moments. I started day 91 by throwing out all the water tames and leveling up HP on some of them. I wasn't sure what water tame I wanted to use to tame a giant squid, but I would need a tame with a lot of health. After the water tames were sorted, I went looking for a Eutyrannus.
This tame is another essential one to the challenge, and I needed to get as high of a level as possible. The Yudi is essential because of its courage roar ability. In the boss fight, this ability would greatly boost my dino's strength and resistance, which would give me a fighting chance. After spyglassing only my second Yudi, it was level 140. I couldn't ask for anything better, so I got ready to tame it. I set up my trap and prepared myself for a long taming process. The Utyrannus has a second type of roar that fears smaller dinos and makes them run away. Because of this, trapping it would be an absolute pain, and it would be very difficult to have it follow me without getting roared. First order of business was to kill the Carnos that spawned with him so they didn't get in the way. After they were dead, I tried leading him to the trap. Just like I expected, this was an absolute pain. Every time my Argent got feared, I flew extremely far away from the trap. The worst part about this is the Yudi would follow me just as far from the trap, and I would have to lead him all the way back. Every time I thought I was going to be successful, he would avoid the trap completely. Combining this with getting fear roared, I realized I was not going to be able to do this on my Argentavis.
Oh, no way he caught me again.
I needed to switch up my strategy and try to trap him in a different way. I decided to use my Pyroman since it would be easier to control the Yudi and I wouldn't run as far away every time I got feared. I eventually got him to run directly toward the ramp, and I realized the entire time he couldn't even get up. I quickly crafted some more ramps and got back to trapping. After going for another attempt, I was finally successful.
Yes, he's in the trap. He's in the trap. Let's go. Finally, we got him in the trap.
After a painstaking process, I finally trapped the Yudi and I could knock him out. I knocked out the Yudi and got some prime meat on Sunfire for him. He perfectly tamed, and I named him Karen since he was screaming at me for the entire tame. When I got home, I realized I was completely out of metal and I needed to restock. I needed to craft metal gates to trap a Giga, and they were very expensive. With the Anki's auto hit feature and my Argentavis, this was a huge metal run. It didn't take me long at all, and I gathered all the metal I would need to finish the 100 days. To end this day, I risked my life to grab a very risky drop. There were a ton of Rexes and an Alpha Carno right next to it. The drop ended up being worth my time, and it had a bunch of improved saddles. On day 92, it was time to tame a Kraken of the sea. The Tuso is one of the final tames I would need, and I came up with a plan to get one. I needed black pearls to feed one, and when taming my Mosasaur, I had seen an Alpha Mosasaur. When you kill an Alpha Mosasaur, you get 100 black pearls, which would be more than enough for a Tuso. I decided to take out Razorfang for this mission because he was fast and could deal some serious damage. My plan to kill an Alpha Mosasaur was to use my already built Mosasaur trap to trap it and kill it while it was stuck. On my way to the trap, I spotted a Shastasaurus. This would be the last time of the 100 days, and it was a relief to know I knew where they spawned. Literally not even 5 seconds after seeing the Shastasaurus, I also spotted an electric eel. This is another tame I have forgotten to get, and I would need to gather biotoxin to tame one. I made it to my trap and picked up the gate so I'd be able to replace it after the Alpha was trapped. For this day, I decided to turn off fog in the water since a tame so deep in the water would be very hard to see, and I wanted you guys to have the best possible view. I swam towards where I last spotted an Alpha Mosasaur, and I spotted a giant white tail out of the corner of my eye. Lo and behold, it was level 45 Alpha Mosasaur, and I swam toward it to get its attention. It aggroed on me and started chasing me down. I was very nervous the Mosasaur would be faster than me and that I wouldn't even be able to make it to my trap. Luckily, it was a lot slower than I thought it would be, and I led it to my trap. It swam in, and I placed the gate as fast as I could. I trapped it on my very first attempt, and now I could start killing it. I didn't know how to attack it without getting hit, so I started biting its tail. This continued for a while when I heard damaging sounds. I realized the Mosa was breaking the structures and I was in some serious trouble. If I didn't kill it before the trap broke, I would be out of luck. I eventually got smart and started biting it from the top of its back. It couldn't hit me and I didn't have to keep swimming around. Then things went horribly wrong. The gate shattered, and it's safe to say in this moment the water turned brown. I was in big trouble. If the Mosasaur turned at all, it would be free and I would likely die. For some reason, the Mosasaur was bugged out and didn't move at all. Unbelievably, it stayed that way for the entire fight and I got the job done.
Yes! We did it! We killed the Alpha Mosasaur. Oh my gosh, that took forever.
I got the 100 black pearls from the Mosa, and I could now tame a Tuso. I swam towards the back of the ravine where I saw a Tuso during the Dunkleosteus tame. I was very lucky that it was still there, and it was a level 130. Getting the black pearls was the hardest part, and now that I had its food source, it would be easy to tame. I swam up to the Tuso and got it to grab me.
He grabbed us. Swim up to the beak. Tamed! Let's go! Kraken. I still had time left on day 92 and I wanted to get an electric eel tame done. I went home and crafted a Basilosaurus saddle. This is because the Basilo is immune to the shocking dismount effect, which would make it perfect for this tame. I swam out to sea and quickly found some jellyfish to kill. Now that I had the biotoxin I needed, I just needed to find eels. I swam to where I'd seen a group of them last and encountered some. I killed all but one of them and then got it to shock me. Once it was out of charge, I swam up to it and tamed it in one feeding. After yet another successful taming adventure, I only had 7 tames left until I completed the challenge. On day 93, I had a plan to knock out 2 more of these tames. I wanted to tame an Ovis and a Troodon. These tames are both pretty annoying and I wasn't looking forward to it, but it had to get done. To prepare for the Troodon tame, I grabbed all the fertilized eggs from my Oviraptor and started breeding all my big tames. I did this because I need large baby tames to sacrifice to the Troodon for it to tame. After collecting all the eggs, I was ready to start taming. I flew out of my base and there were Troodons on the beach attacking Sunfire. This could not have been any better timing and I built a trap to tame them. Again, I didn't realize I wouldn't be able to tame it while it was trapped and I was wasting my time. I crafted a bunch of torches and started hatching a Rex egg. It hatched and I put the Rex in the cage. The Troodon wasn't consistently attacking the baby and I knew something was up. I also made another rookie mistake when I put the baby Rex on passive. Even if the Troodon killed the Rex, it wouldn't tame since it was on passive. I realized this when the Rex died and it did nothing for the Troodon's taming percentage. After this failure, I reassessed the taming process and crafted some pheromone darts. This would help me to guarantee the Troodon's aggro and make this tame a lot easier. I messed up a couple more times until I finally got some taming percentage when the Troodon killed a Pachyrhino baby. Now that I had the system down to a science, I hatched up a baby Spino and got it low enough for the Troodon to kill. The Troodon killed the baby Spino and fully tamed. This tame was an absolute pain and I messed up a bunch, but I got the job done. Before I went out to tame an Ovis, I wanted to pump a bunch of levels into my tame. It would be very beneficial to start leveling up my boss fighting tames now so I wouldn't have to heal them all later. I started checking Ovis spawns and I wasn't having any luck at all. I checked a ton of spots and I was losing hope that I was going to find one. My only hope was to find one by Blue Obelisk, so that's where I went. I didn't see any and my hope of finding one was dwindling quickly. At the last moment before I was about to give up, I spotted one. I landed next to it and picked berries for it. When I walked towards it to passive feed it, I realized I needed sweet veggie cakes. I flew home as fast as possible and cooked 2 cakes. Luckily, when I got back to the obelisk, it was still there and I got it tamed. On day 94, I was down to the last 5 tames of the challenge. During this day, I wanted to tame a Titanoboa and a Leopleurodon. If I got those 2 tames out of the way, I would only have 3 saddle tames left. Luckily, I had leftover fertilized Pachyrhino eggs in the preserving bin and I went out to tame a Titanoboa. My goal was to find the lowest level boa I could and get an easy tame. I built my stone trap on the beach and I was ready to pick up a boa. I flew into the swamp and I started spyglassing all the boas I saw. It didn't take me long at all to find a level 15, which was the perfect level. I picked it up with my Argent and dropped it in my trap. After it was in the trap, I flew out of render distance to de-aggro from the snake. Now that he was passive, I could drop fertilized eggs into the trap. I messed up dropping my first egg into the trap and it flew farther than I wanted. On the second try, I dropped it perfectly into the trap and surprisingly the boa tamed immediately. After making it back home, I prepared for the Leopleurodon tame. This dino spawns very deep in Ark's oceans and it could potentially be very dangerous. Because of this, I wanted to take my giant squid on this tame. I crafted a saddle for my squid and placed my cryo fridge on the beach to release it. After grabbing my scuba gear and honey, I was ready for the tame. I swam to the very deepest part of the center's ocean. I swam off a ledge into the dark ocean and only glowing plants were providing any light. Once I reached the bottom, I started swimming along the world border. This place seemed barren and I wasn't having any luck finding anything. I thought I was going to be in for a long search when miraculously I found one. The Leopleurodon started attacking my squid, which gave me the perfect opportunity to tame it. I fed it 1 honey and it tamed. Taming this Leopleurodon gave me a golden opportunity to use its boosted loot crate buff.
We're gonna name him Leo the Leopleurodon. Really creative.
I swam all the way to the jungle cave and inside I found a blue loot crate. Unfortunately, it had nothing good, so I swam home. When I got off Leo, I realized my player would have the Leopleurodon buff for a long time even after he died. Because of this, I decided to head fully inside the jungle cave to see if I could find a loot crate. When I got inside the cave, there actually was a drop and in its inventory, it had yet another long neck. This long neck was ridiculously strong and had over 400 damage. This was a huge find and it would make taming a Giga much easier. I got the long neck at the perfect time possible because on day 85 it was time to tame the Giga. To be successful in this tame, I needed to heavily prepare. I started gathering as many narco berries as possible because I would need a ton of narcotics. I got a boatload of narcotics crafting, so I focused on the next resource I would need. I needed a bunch of gunpowder to craft drink darts, so I took Thwacky out for a flint run. After I got back, I crafted a bunch of spark powder. The next thing I needed to focus on was actually crafting a trap for the Giga. I needed large bear traps and metal gates. With the huge metal run I went on recently, I had no issues crafting everything I needed. To finish preparing for this tame, I crafted a ton of trank darts and converted as many of them as I could into shocking darts. With the combination of my insane long neck rifle and shocking darts, I was confident I would have no issues knocking out the Giga. I flew to the lava island and the Giga I found earlier was still there. After scoping out the area, I decided it would be easier to lead him downhill. This is because he'd be faster downhill, which would mean less potential for something to go wrong. I landed and killed every creature in the area. I wanted to make sure no wild dinos distracted him while I was trying to lead him into the trap. After they were all dead, I started placing gates. I placed my gates in a U pattern and placed both of my bear traps in the center. This would give me extra time to trap him if I needed and guarantee that I got the last gate placed. I flew up the hill and got the Giga's attention. My hands were drenched with sweat and I definitely did not want to get bit by the Giga. I flew towards the trap and luckily he followed me without making me fly too low to the ground. I failed to trap him on my first attempt and I had to tank a couple of hits to lead him back up the hill. I tried to trap him again and this time I made sure he followed me directly towards the trap. I took a ton of hits and my Argent was getting turned into Swiss cheese. To make things worse, I figured out the trap was too narrow and I needed to craft another gate. I flew back to my base and killed some creatures to heal my Argent. I then crafted another gate and an extra bear trap just in case I needed it. I flew back to the lava island and this time I was determined to trap the Giga. The Giga seemed to be distracted eating something and I was able to get the trap set up properly. I went for another attempt to trap him and he chased me into the bear trap.
There we go. He's trapped. And we placed this gate and that gate. Perfect. I think he's totally trapped now.
The moment I heard it go off, I placed the final gates and locked him in. The hard part was over and now I could trank him. The Giga had a ton of torpor and even with my insane long neck rifle, it took a very long time before he knocked out. After he went down, I checked his torpor and he was already waking up ridiculously fast. I was very worried I didn't craft enough narcotics and that I would need to shoot him to keep him down. Fortunately, I ended up having enough narcotics and he tamed. I tamed Ark's most ferocious creature and I decided he needed a name that fit his status. I decided that Cupcake was the perfect name and put him into a cryopod. Now that the Giga tame was complete, it was time to tame the only carnivore that can even hold a candle to the Giga's strength. On days 96 through 97, my sole mission was to tame a Karcha. This tame requires a lot more steps than a Giga and requires some sacrifices. The way you tame a Karcha is by feeding it until you can ride it, then you have to kill wild dinos while on its back. I could kill wild dinos to fulfill these requirements, but I decided it would be easiest to hatch baby dinos for it to kill. This is because there's a limited amount of time to complete the tame after feeding it. This makes it more beneficial to have baby dinos on standby that it can easily kill and not have to look for wild dinos. After my tames were done breeding, I collected all of their eggs. Before I went to tame a Karcha, I wanted to do some much needed leveling and try one more time to get a good imprinted Dinosuchus. I went to the beach and started incubating the giant crocodile egg. When the egg hatched, the baby had both the worst stats from the parents. This baby was not worth raising and it was very unfortunate that I couldn't get an imprinted Dinosuchus before the boss fight. After that disappointment, I hopped on my Rex and went on a rampage. I needed to get my Rex as many levels as possible if I wanted to have any hope of beating the boss. While leveling, I spotted not one but two Alpha Raptors. After killing them both, my Rex got a ton of levels and was ready for the boss fight.
Now we got plenty of levels on our Rex. So I want to go 20k health on him. Actually 25k, and then just all melee.
The other dino that seriously needed levels was my Spino. This was another key dino for my success, so leveling her up was very important. I took her to the river and started going ham. The amount of Rexes by the river was ridiculous and they were the perfect tool to level up. I also lucked out again and found another Alpha Raptor to kill. After taking it down on my Spino, I had plenty of levels and was ready for the boss fight. Now that I was done leveling up tames, I was ready to get back to the challenge. I had everything I needed for this tame, so I started scouting for a Karcha. I started my search in the lava area and I was having no luck. I flew over the entire island and I eventually did find something. I found a Giga, which was very unfortunate and it was not the dino I was looking for. The last place to look was close to the snow and I had my fingers crossed that I could find a Karcha. I got to the snow and the first spot I checked had a Karcha. He was only level 15, which would make him an easy tame. Because of his low level, I was pretty confident the amount of eggs I brought would be more than enough for the tame. I made sure he was distracted killing wild dinos, and I took the opportunity to get my entire trap placed. The Karcha would still do a ton of damage to me, but I would have to be far less careful than the Giga. He kept missing the trap by millimeters, and I was getting frustrated.
I think he's gonna miss it just barely again. Ugh. Come on, go in the trap, dude.
He also kept getting distracted by wild tames nearby and would run away, which reset my progress. I failed more times than I could count, and my bird was starting to get very low. After another failed attempt, I needed to retreat and heal my bird. After I was healed, I went for another attempt. My strategy was to fly extremely low and stay in the cage until I heard the bear trap go off.
There we go. He's stuck. Come over here. Place these gates. Boom. Alright, he should be trapped now.
This ended up working, and I was able to place both gates to trap the Karcha. Now that the Karcha was trapped, I placed down my standing torches and started preparing all of my eggs. My plan was to feed him a baby Rex that would allow me to ride him, then I would eat all the other babies for actual taming percentage. While incubating my eggs, I messed up and accidentally hatched one of my Theory eggs before I was ready. This was annoying, but I would still be able to kill the Theory with the Karcha and get taming progress. Now that all my eggs were ready, I hatched a Rex egg and killed it. I dragged it to the Karcha and tried to feed it to him. I got scared at the last second and dropped the Rex, which made it so I didn't get any progress towards riding it. I decided to go for another feeding attempt with the Theory I accidentally hatched. This was because I only had a couple large dino eggs and I couldn't afford to mess up again. I was able to feed it to the Karcha, and now I knew what I was doing. I hatched a Spino and another Therizino egg. I killed the Spino and fed it to the Karcha. Now I was able to ride the Karcha, and I freed him from the trap. I killed the baby Theory I prepared, and it tamed him 25%. Because of this, I knew I had plenty of eggs and had nothing to worry about. I killed a bunch of baby Packy Rhinos, which almost completely tamed him. His rage meter was nowhere near 100, and I was able to finish the tame. I named him Cheeto, and I was one step closer to completing the challenge. I had tamed every land creature, and I only had one creature left to go before I completed the entire taming challenge. On day 98, it was time to tame a Shastasaurus and complete the taming challenge. After I got back to base, I grabbed all my water gear and set out on Razorfang. Before I could tame a Shastasaurus, I needed to tame yet another dolphin because all of my past ones had died. I found one close to the river and passively fed it until it was tamed. Now that I had an Ichthy, I was ready for the tame. I swam towards where I previously had found a Shastasaurus. It didn't take me long to find one, and he was level 100. I hopped on my dolphin and got the Shastasaurus to swim to the surface. I cleaned all of the leeches off of him and fed him. On the first feed, I'm not even kidding, one fish meat tamed him 1%. I didn't want to be stuck feeding this tame forever, so I went to get prime meat. I found another Shastasaurus and started killing it. This battle got extremely intense when an entire pack of Xiphactinus swarmed me. I was actually in serious danger and Razorfang was getting low. I finally managed to kill the Xiphactinus, and I could focus on killing the Shastasaurus. After I died, I harvested it and it gave me a bunch of prime meat. I thought it was weird I didn't get prime fish meat, but I assumed that I could feed the Shastasaurus raw prime. I did the leech process again, and I realized I couldn't feed him anything but fish meat. I read that Dunkleosteus give prime fish meat, so I went to kill one. I got distracted by killing the donkey, and my dolphin died.
Did they just kill my dolphin? They totally did, didn't they? Shoot! Are you kidding me? I hate this game sometimes.
I was so mad and annoyed with myself that I didn't even think about moving my dolphin. I eventually killed a donkey and harvested it with my sickle. I didn't even get a single piece of prime meat, and I was very annoyed. I don't know if prime fish meat was glitched in my game, but I would have to feed it raw fish meat and get 1% at a time. I fed the Shastasaurus more times than I could count, and I was getting very bored. After a long taming process, I got the Shastasaurus tamed and I completed the challenge. It had been a long and difficult challenge, but I was successful.
The Shastasaurus finally tamed him up. That took forever, and with that, the challenge is complete.
I tamed every possible creature and became a master dinosaur tamer. The only thing left to do was grab my 20 best tames and challenge the boss. Now that the challenge was complete, I needed to prepare for the boss fight. On day 99, I needed to craft a bunch of cryopods to transport my tames to the obelisk. I had all the resources I needed to craft them except for crystal and polymer. I harvested a ton of crystal and slaughtered several ducks. I then went to the blue obelisk and made 13 more cryopods, which would be just enough. Now I was ready to get my dino squad ready. I started running around the base, leveling up all the tames I was going to bring and cryopoding the ones that were already leveled up. After all my tames were healed, I cryed them all and I was almost ready for the fight. I suited up my character with my best armor and with my strongest weapons. I also grabbed all the ammo I could use for my weapons and I was ready to go. I flew to the obelisk and placed my crop fridge nearby. I then threw out all my tames next to the obelisk. On day 100, all my tames were awake and they were ready to fight to the death. This entire challenge had led up to this moment and now it was time to see if my hard work had paid off. My strategy for this fight was to ride on Sunfire and whistle all my other tames into battle. I put my UD on auto courage and my Daedon on auto heal. This would make it so they used their abilities without me having to do anything. I put all the artifacts into the obelisk and summoned the boss. Ark's bosses are already difficult as is, and the handicap of having 20 different creatures was going to make this fight nearly impossible. I was teleported into the boss fight and I had no time to think before seeing a giant boulder hurled at my tames. I whistled all my tames onto the giant ape and ran into battle.
Oh man, he's doing a ton of damage. Oh, we're chunking him. We're chunking him.
My confidence did not last for long and my tames started dropping like flies. My creatures were clearly not strong enough and they were literally all dying. For some reason, the Yudi was not using his passive roar ability, so none of my creatures were getting buffed. This is probably the biggest factor that contributed to my dinos dying so quickly, but there was nothing I could do about it.
No, there goes the tank. Come on, we can take down one of these guys.
After my Rex died, my chances of succeeding in this fight were very low. The Megapithecus was almost dead, but the Broodmother was still full health. I decided to focus all my efforts on killing the giant monkey and hope for the best. My Stego was tanking an absolute beating and I was able to deal a ton of damage to the boss without getting hit. The Megapithecus died, which meant I took down half the bosses in the arena. I was in too much danger to even be hyped that I took down one of the bosses and I focused my attention on the Broodmother. I started biting the giant spider and doing as much damage as I could. Hank the Tank the Stego died and I was left alone in the arena. All 19 of the tames I brought with me were dead and Sunfire was at a quarter health. Things were not looking good, but I was not going down without a fight. Sunfire fought hard until her last breath, but she was no match for the Broodmother all by herself. She died and my ride or die of the 100 days died. I was now on my own with no tames and the Broodmother was over half health. I did my best to shoot her with my shotgun, but I got webbed and my chest piece broke. I knew I was going to die soon, but I fought until the very end.
I'll fight till the end. I'll fight till the end. I don't care. Oh, and we're down.
I died and I couldn't defeat the bosses with 20 different tames. I was disappointed, but at the end of the day, I still completed the main goal of the 100 days and I tamed every creature on the center.
Thank you guys for watching. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.